Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and Merry Christmas, everybody. My name is Dave Scott, as this is our final show before we're going to take the next 2 nights off before we get back on the 26th right here broadcasting to all of you live. Hope you're ready for a wonderful holiday. So are we. We are bringing in a panel of awesomeness for you on the year that was in ufology. Yes, even little Timmy James is in studio right there. And the best part about tonight, all of you being here. And who are you? Well, we got Tim Mothman and his goatee in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver in the studio with a bronze medal tonight. Laura Lobbs, Kitty Caddywhack, Robert Lamoth, Lil Cam over on YouTube tonight. He did 500 jumping jacks in 4.5 minutes to warm up for this show. And you know why he was warming up? Because he's signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. If you make eye contact, Lil Cam will not sign. No, he's an arrogant prick that way. Brown Dwarf for Attorney at Large, Michael Morris. You better be in Vegas, Michael. May 1st to 5th. You better be joining us. Cosmic Joe, Fast Hemi, how you doing? Smurfy, Mr. Cowley, how you doing, buddy? Nice to see you. All right, let's scroll on down. Little Timmy James in the chat room. How you doing? Good. And who else do we have here? Frankie B. Karen in the Woo Train. Lenda. Stephen Finnegan is living in Tomorrowland in the UK. Good morning to you. Stephen will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Eternity Eternal. Nice to see you. Lenda. Good to have you here. Jordan Ashley Pettit, good evening to you. Nice to have you back. Hillbilly Herb, Richard Minnick, Skip to Malou, and Thomas Rock. Good to have you all here. JBD, thanks for coming on in. Deborah Rooney from Sackaroony is here. Good to see you. Dee Buchik, nice to have you back. Richard Minnick, thank you for coming on in, and thank you for kicking off this Super Chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much. And we scroll on down. There's Pam Harris, Dragonfly, Paramarv, Nina Williams. Nice to have you all here. Fapster, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Scrolling on down. Up next, we have Alien Critter. Noble Patrick, nice to have you here. Number 25 in your program, starting on defense from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. There he is. The fans are going wild. And B, how you doing? Cielo, nice to have you here. And Deborah Rooney, thank you for that excellent super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love, Deb. Your love. I might be in San Francisco coming up here in a few months. I might be there, Deb. I'm just forewarning you. Lee the Bee, what's going on? J True Seeker, nice to see you. And Chris. Teen, nice to see you. Marty Burbank, hope you're coming to Vegas too, my friend. You better have that on your calendar. Asteroid, nice to see you. As we scroll on down, John Lamb, good to have you here. SG Nav Spotter. Stephen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate the love from our Commonwealther there. And new to the chat room, Real Alien Encounters, welcome to SOR chat. And Alien Girl, nice to see you. If that's who I think it is, I'm going to give you a special wave. And let's see here. If that wasn't you, then you don't get that wave. No offense. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we are getting into the year that was in ufology. We got a great panel coming up. We are in roll call right now with our audience. Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me. How you doing, buddy? And we scroll down a little bit here. Who's next? Because we are running out of time. Totally running out of time. We're not going to make it. Not going to make it. We're not going to make it, damn it. Warden Dragon, how you doing? Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock. Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and thank you so much for tuning us on in. We very much appreciate wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Why are we excited tonight? Well, it is Christmas time, and we want to make sure that all of you get your UFO woo right before Santa starts flying. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out the bubble, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show tonight. We're going the distance with a great UFO panel as we look at the year that was in the field of ufology. Why are we taking this route? Well, it was a busy year. It was a very busy year. And we got a great panel coming up for you tonight. So let's just get right into it. The year of 2024 was probably the closest ever to any sort of disclosure or confirmation that we've ever had. There was multiple stories from congressional hearings, Senate hearings, drones in New Jersey, to MUFON, to Lou Elizondo, and every orb and UAP in between. Now, tonight, we got a great panel. We have Little Timmy James, our UFO reporter, Josh Rutledge, podcaster and researcher, author extraordinaire Olav Phillips is here. In a little bit, Nicole Sakach will be joining us as well. We're still efforting to get her computer going. So we're going to try and get this in right now. And gentlemen, I want to say a big, warm, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. It's an important time of year. And I want to say thank you for taking time out of your holiday week to spend it with Spaced Out Radio and our audience around the world, to talk about UFOs. So thank you very, very much, guys. Very much appreciate it. Now, let's start with you, Josh, here as we get things going here. What was your thoughts of 2024?
I mean, wow. Everything from, the spending bill that had the National Defense Authorization Act, for fiscal year 24, that had the anomalous, Disclosure Act, allowing people to come forward. I mean, for me, though, probably the biggest event, I think, is Lou Elizondo, towards the latter part of the year. But, I mean, it was a significant year. Arrow had their, big report. They still had, 21 cases in that were unidentified. It's it was just a really big year, I think. And like you said, probably one for, mark up with maybe like 2017 and this year as being kind of the two big items for disclosure.
All right, Olav Phillips, let's bring you in here. And I know you've been watching intently everything that's going on. Good year, bad year for ufology? What's your thoughts?
I'm going to say it's a neutral year. I'm the wet blanket, but we always go in these loops where some guy comes out, it's a big deal, he talks a lot, we find something in the budget, everybody's excited, we see disclosure this or disclosure that, everything's going to come out, and we're still neutral. I mean, there hasn't been any disclosure. Lou Elizondo came out and said what he said, and well, I'll tell you, I think there was one shining part, when they did do the congressional hearing. One of the interesting things that came out was that the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, said, look, we know what some of this stuff is. We've detected this or we've detected that. And, we can identify this stuff. It's emitting radio signals, doesn't sound very alien. So I would say that was a positive, but the rest of it, I think we're still where we were last year or the day before. I don't see anything massive that's shifted. There's a lot of promise, but I don't see any kind of execution.
And little Timmy James, let's bring you in here from our UFO report. I know you're kind of the new kid on the block here when it comes to UFOs, but when you look back, you're a pretty quick student. What really caught your attention this year?
I seem to see that the ball seemed to be a lot of rolling. I mean, it was coming from all different angles. Obviously, Lou Elizondo, his book, all that sort of stuff, the congressional hearings, the drones. I mean, everything was rolling through, and quote unquote promise to open up some more secret vaults or secret doors, but yeah, I found it very fast. I found there was it was fast paced, and it was coming from different angles for me. But there also, I would have to say, there was a lot of I told you so nothing burgers as well. Right? But yeah, I would say it was just the amount of information and the amount of people talking about UFOs that I found very, very interesting that I haven't seen before.
And you know what? I will say this. I think if they're take away all the players, all the shenanigans, all the games, UFO versus UAP, all of this. Okay. The one thing that I will say, I think that 2024 really did create is it created a lot more people staring up at the sky looking for things. Okay, whether you believe in UFOs or not, people were looking and people were taking videos. We always said over the last number of years, and Olav, you and I had this conversation many a times over the years, that people need to stop looking at their phones, start looking into the sky and start seeing what you see and learn what you're seeing. All of a sudden we weren't getting reports of Starlink. We weren't getting reports of the International Space Station. People were saying this looks ominous, and they were doing what we asked them to do for years, posting it on their social media, posting it in UFO groups. And some of those videos even got a little bit of traction. And I thought for the people, it was a great year. Am I disappointed in a few things? Oh, yeah, I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed with NASA. I'm disappointed with Elizondo's publicist. Not Lou, but Elizondo's publicist. I'm disappointed in the fact that we still are playing these charades over this topic, but that's going to continue. That's just me being 10 years in and trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. But Olav, let's take it from you. What do you think about the positives of this year?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking up. I think a lot of people were getting educated, and I think everything you said was right on. And I do think it's a positive that someone like Elizondo came out. It just because of his national security status, clearance status, he can't really tell you anything. So, but I think that him, he's not a spook. Well, he's sort of a spook, but he's not directly as spooks. So, he came out and said, look, I tracked these things. It got to the Congress. I think that's really great, big positive. But I think the real win here is that people were getting educated and looking up. No more Starlink, no more it's an airplane. People were actually contributing. And I think that's huge. Because Lou Elizondos of the world, they come and they go. But the people looking up and pushing and convincing Congress to hold hearings about it at all, I think was a massive win.
Josh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for I would have to agree. I think a lot of what you guys have said, kind of echo that for me the big positive is the people looking up. I mean, did we end up with potentially some videos of airplanes and maybe some satellites and things like that? A meteor breaking up here and there, probably so. But the fact that people still recorded it and submitted it in the social media context and wanting to understand what it was, I think is a big significant leap from where we were. Most of the people, I think, the true, let's say, the people who know, right, who have had an experience on their own, and they're not. It's not a matter of belief. It's right. Those people were never needed to be convinced. It was always the people who would have tuned into the local news station when they played the X-Files theme song because somebody reported a UFO the night before. But I'm happy to see that, even all during the New Jersey stuff, no local news station, no national news station played that theme song in jest to what was happening. To me, that's a turning point in the way that we as a social community view the topic. And then the second point that I would make is that Lou Elizondo, I think, Olaf, to your point, he can't tell us much, but I think Lou told us more if you listen to what he didn't say. If you listen to what in the hearings and the UAP hearings, if you listen to the questions that were asked and the answers that were given and what wasn't said, I think you'll actually, like a lot of times with the government, it's all in you have to read between the lines to see what they're actually saying versus what's coming out of their mouth.
I'm just so sick and tired, guys, of trying to read between the lines. And that's something I enjoy doing because I've always said on this show, the story is in between the lines. You have to learn to read between the lines of what they are saying. That's where the real information is. And I think that's a great point you brought up there, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you go back and look at the first UAP, UFO hearing, whatever you want to call it, to the last. There's a lot of very good information that's being conveyed. I really wish that somebody would, if somebody hasn't already, would take and compile all the mic drop moments that have occurred in these various hearings since they began, because there have been a lot. And if hearing all these different mic drop moments that have happened in all the hearings in 2024 and earlier doesn't convince you that there's something awry, there's something going on, then I don't know. I don't know if there's any hope for that particular person to come out of the woodwork and be willing to look up.
The highlight of January of 2024 was Tim Burchett, the congressman who has been a very loud, vocal proponent to UFO disclosure / UAP disclosure. And he really started the year off with a bang where he was absolutely ripping on everybody from the Pentagon to the military to the government contractors, saying you guys are all lying. Basically saying you are all lying. Stop the lying. The American people have a right to know. Typical politician going in and talking tough, but he never backed down. He never backed down on everything. Olav, I'm going to give you the first comment on that because Burchett started the year really talking tough about the need for more transparency regarding UAP investigations. Your overall thoughts?
Well, I think it's another positive, that it's what we've seen in the government, aside from parties, take parties out of it, what you've seen in the government is a generational shift. And the people that are coming in there now, they're the Gen X crowd, and they don't believe it. They never did. Those of us who live in the Gen X world, we always knew that there was something fishy about Kennedy or UFOs, and it wasn't crazy to us. It wasn't stupid. Where you have the boomers and the lost generation, and they trusted, and well, maybe not the boomers so much, but they trusted. And in the X crowd, they don't trust, right? So I think that having him there, you'll see more of that. It's just, the problem is that he can say whatever he says, but where is the information really? And I would argue to you, it's not in the Pentagon. So getting access to it is not something that he can necessarily do easily, or any of them can do easily, because the web that exists of how they secure this stuff. But I think it's massively great that there's a congressman out there. And Harry Reid, to his credit, also pushed, maybe not as hard, not as vocally, but there are people out there in the Congress, in the Senate and the House, that are pushing for these things. And I think that's huge. And they don't play the X-Files theme song. I thought that was a really great point.
Tim, your thoughts?
I liked it. I think that Tim Burchett, everything that he's the guy that just he seems to be that person that just wears his heart on his sleeve. I mean, okay, granted, congressman, the whole 9 yards, I get it. Politician, I get it. But he hasn't stopped. And the guy lays out some really, really good quotes for for the news. And he's not afraid to say that, he's not afraid to say. Bottom line, he's not afraid to say. And he's been fun to follow. I mean, some of the times it's like, okay, you're in an 11, Tim. We need you to about a 6, right? Just dial her down a bit. But yeah, again, just a dog on a bone. And I appreciate the fact, and I mean, us being Canadian, but I mean, having somebody like that as a politician is different, because we don't have that up here. And yeah, I thought that it seemed to me anyway, that his desire for everybody to quit lying and just lay it out on the table, to me, seemed genuine. Now, I could have had the wool pull over my eyes, but yeah, I like him. I do. I really like reading, and when there's an interview or he's got an article out, I got to check it out, because yeah, he's going to say something for sure that's going to knock the socks off somebody somewhere.
Well, I will say this, though. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, or the UFO advocate here. We heard a lot about transparency, and I kind of griped a little bit at Burchett and other Congress people who were really going in on the tough guy image of we need transparency. Where's the transparency? But the minute they started getting into these hearings back in 2022, 2023, 2024, okay, everything had to be said to skiff. Everything had to be said behind closed doors. If you're wanting transparency, let's get it in front of people. This is why we have congressional hearings. This is why we expect things to be said. And it was Anna Paulina Luna, after the recent ones, who said that was a waste of time. Our people were not telling us anything we didn't already know. And
but that's the problem. That's the problem, Dave. That to achieve transparency, you have to go through what can be a very lengthy declassification process, because the data may be, say, in the Air Force or the Space Force, same difference to me, but you've got stuff from the Navy, you've got stuff from the Marines, got stuff from the Army, from the Air Force, from the Space Force. The transparency element, people can say transparency now, but as of right now, it has to be in a skiff, and the process to get it out of the skiff is going to be a time-consuming one. But I'm happy that they're working on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say that my personal feelings around Tim is that he is he either is an experiencer, or he has someone close to him who is an experiencer, because the passion that he brings to the conversation is not someone who's just representing their constituents. The passion that he brings to the conversation is someone who either has some identification of what the perceived truth is, or he is really close to wanting to know what it is. So he's either invested because he's had an experience, or he knows someone close to him who has. And then the second piece around, transparency, I talked about this, Dave, the last time I think we were on the show talking about, something, I think the New Jersey drones is, you have to realize that in those UAP hearings and things, the public is a piece on the board, right? It's a chess game, and the public is a piece on the board. And so the transparency that they keep speaking about is just to use that, in my opinion, as a play to force someone's hand to then share more information, because ultimately Congress's goal in all of these hearings is to gain oversight on all these special access programs that they have not been given oversight of. That's what, the 2017 article really was highlighting, is that there are all these special access programs that don't have government oversight. And so really that's what all of these are driving towards, in my opinion. And so the transparency for the public is, for the most part, I think, just a piece on the board that gets played when they're not making headway. That's why we go every so often and then we have a hearing, because they're getting stalemate, left and right. They're not making any progress. So we'll have it in a hearing. We'll put it back out in the public eye. That'll, prod somebody to open some doors, and we'll continue kind of pursuing it wherever it may lead. But I do think that at least Tim, and maybe even a few others on those hearing panels, have likely had experiences, or have people close to them who have experiences, just to look at the passion that they bring to those hearings.
Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, wow. I would just listen to that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. And yeah, that was good. I'm just educated myself on that. That's great.
Oh,
No, that's right. I was wondering where his passion was coming from. I mean, it's strange because I never thought of it that way. And it makes a lot of sense because, yeah, like I said, he's like a dog on a bone. And I didn't know if it was bravado or what, but yeah, you never know. Maybe somebody close to him, or he knows somebody, or he himself was involved. Very, very good point. Yeah, got to kind of sit back and think about that a bit.
Well, I mean, the fact that he's from Knoxville, which is right on the border of the Appalachian Mountains, and the Appalachian Mountains have a lot of UFO activity. So, he's probably got family, or like I said, or himself, that have had some strange experience that they can't explain, and that's prompted his passion. That's just my opinion, but
that's good.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Like, give you an example. Up here in Canada, Member of Parliament Larry Maguire had also, been watching this subject for about 3-4 years before he became passionate about it. And he's not an experiencer. He's never seen a thing, but his people under them had a real epiphany, saying, this is something we need to be looking into, boss. And he looked into it. They caught his attention, and that's what started it. And sometimes it's just, you need your assistants to open up your eyes a little bit, whether they're experiencers or whether they're just tracking what people and the citizens are talking about. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I think that we also, for situations like that you're a member of Parliament, I think that Elizondo should get credit for that, right? Because when Elizondo came out and he, with the Tic Tac and the other stuff, that opened the floodgates of all these military pilots who were like, yeah, I was the guy who took that video. There was no longer that stigma. And now you've got commercial pilots, military pilots, ex-military pilots who are commercial pilots, just pilots in general, who are excellent observers. I don't think anybody would argue that a pilot, is the guy you want to see a UFO, right? Because he understands the aerodynamics and the flight capabilities of different kinds of aircraft. So I think that in some of these cases, like your member of Parliament, where his underling said, "Whoa, we've got to get on this," it's because of what Elizondo did.
All right, we got Olav Phillips, we have Josh Rutledge, we got Tim James, the UFO Year in Review. When we come back, It was February when the Pentagon released their UFO report. We'll get to that next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear, boys.
All right.
We're clear. Look at that. Would you look at that?
Look at it.
Thank you to Steam Train Mark in Australia, who's letting me know that I am alive tomorrow, which means, Tim, you're alive tomorrow,
Thank goodness.
which means that Josh is alive tomorrow and Olav
Yes.
is alive tomorrow.
Fantastic.
We made it another day, people.
Nice.
That's the
Anytime
beauty.
you wake up on this side of the ground is a good day.
Hey, that's the best part about having listeners in Australia is we always know we're alive tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm still
That's
waiting
true.
for the winning Powerball tickets. I've never gotten them.
Me too. I won on a slot machine today.
And you know how much?
Wow.
10 grand.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I hit the jackpot.
Nice. You know how many
Yeah, that-
new Glad Carhartt shirts that's going to get you?
A lot. And then I walked down the hall and I hit another one. I got another $600. So
Oh, man.
then I left.
I bet. Phineas over on X, how you doing? Gorgeous Kim Jellin, I may be going to UFO Con in San Francisco, so you better show up with them nice teeth. Just letting you know. Get the teeth ready. I'm serious, man. She has the nicest teeth I've ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah. When we met Kim in San Francisco at UFO Con a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
literally Kira and I are standing there staring at her teeth.
My eyes are up here.
Yeah. Good morning, Commonwealth Andrew. How you doing, buddy? Mystery Drones, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Mm-hmm. I'm having fun so far.
Yeah.
I am. I'm having fun.
Yeah. Been a great combo, but the first 30 minutes just flew by.
Tell me about it.
No kidding.
We only got 2.5 more hours to go. Yeah. Little Olav Phillips, are you joining us in Vegas?
I'm gonna try.
May 1st to 4th?
May 1st to 4th. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
I'll try.
Josh, I know
try
you're
to do
coming. Is Shane Hurd coming?
Yeah, he's coming with me.
Holy
Well, the 4th.
You
The
wait till
4th is my
beard.
son's birthday. so.
Okay.
Shane Hurd has the beard of all beards.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the thing with the facial hair, dude?
What?
What's the thing with the
Got an
facial?
obsession with it. I don't know.
I don't know. Bags of it. Nothing. Just saying.
You want to know the truth?
No, I'm asking because I want you to lie
I
to
know
me.
he doesn't want to know the truth. None of us do.
I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah, go for it. We all want to know.
It's this simple. Nobody else does it.
Okay, cool. There's the
Good point.
answer.
Nobody else does it. And you know what? It makes people stick out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So-
Cool. Now I know. Thanks for bearing your soul.
Am I laughing?
See,
at
the
people?
truth is out there. We just
What?
have to find it. Right?
Only if you're a hockey player.
Left turn.
Hey, did you see the hockey fight the other night from Saskatchewan?
No, I didn't. I heard.
Men's league game. 47-year-old dad and his 27-year-old son, center ice, drop the gloves, and they are throwing fucking haymakers. Okay.
Nice.
Like this was a real scrap. They weren't holding back. Like normally you can tell
Yeah.
if it's real or not.
Yeah.
These guys, father, son, were going at it on the ice. Real beautiful thing. Brought a tear to my eye. I looked at my son after showing him the
That could
video
be
last
us.
night on the highlights, and I said, son, can we do this?
Gas in the truck.
Yeah. Super Crazy, how you doing? Oh, it's a great fight.
Right on.
Go on YouTube and type in father-son hockey fight. It's a great fight. It really is. I don't know who won because I can't tell them apart. Right? Because it was kind of from a bad angle. But, man, what a good tilt. What a good – I'm sure they shared a beer after that. We're real happy with each other over
Don't
that.
tell your mother.
Travis,
Yeah, right.
Moose Goose, how you doing, buddy? That's right, Travis. It is the Canadian way. Big thank you to Richard, Deborah Rooney, Stephen, Gary, and his great beard, and Lee the Bee with the wonderful super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you go check it on out. And here we go. Second half hour of the UFO year that was. My name is Dave Scott. Merry Christmas to you all. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to YouTube or every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. A great panel so far. Olav Phillips, Josh Rutledge, Tim James. We are talking about the UFO year that was. And we come out of January yelling and screaming, pulling our hair out if we had it over transparency. And in February, well, it got a little interesting because, Josh, the Pentagon released their report on UAPs, and it was quite unimpressive, if you remember.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't ever think we're going to get a report from the Pentagon where they say we have thousands of things we don't know about, simply because of the implications I think that would create of our government, in particularly one of, if not the most powerful military in the world, not knowing about what things are that are breaching their airspace, right? So I think it really comes down to a matter of risk in their eyes. And so to come forward and say, we don't know what things are, it's kind of the same thing with, you know, the whole New York drones. And I know we're not there yet, that's later on in the year, but it's kind of the same thing. It's, you know, for them to admit that they don't know what things are just creates a whole bunch of risk for them, I think, in the world stage. And so we're never going to get a report, in my opinion, that's going to reveal anything in the UFO space.
Mm-hmm. And Tim, I don't think any of us were really surprised that the Pentagon said nothing, that there were no UFOs. They searched high and dry. You know, they checked Lou Elizondo's underwear drawer in his locker from when he worked there. They checked David Grush's, stall to see if there was any UAPs or NHIs underneath his workout shorts.
Right.
They got nothing.
No.
They got absolutely nothing.
Nope. And everything that I read and just going over it, I was very disinterested, to be completely honest. And it was almost like having popcorn without any salt or butter on it. It was just flat, plain, nothing, and nothing surprised me. And, coming, like I say, from the new guy, it just seemed very generic, and yeah, a whole bunch of nothing. More nothing burgers on the platter for everybody.
It really was something that was strange.
Mm-hmm.
It was strange, but it wasn't unexpected.
Nope.
It was something that we all knew was going to happen. We just didn't know how bad it was going to be, that they were literally going to come out and swamp gas the living hell out of us, Olav. Oh, Olav's on mute. We'll get you to unmute your phone.
Yeah, I
there.
got you. No, I got it. Yeah, I mean, I think we should all be surprised if they ever say anything. I think it was very carefully designed to diffuse things. It was supposed to diffuse things, and the temple up on the mountain, they come out and proclaim to the masses, there's nothing over here. These aren't the droids you're looking for. But I think it also tells us something interesting, that it wouldn't hurt them necessarily to put in some detail, some more detail than they did, of potential options of what we're looking at, right? But it really didn't have any kind of substance. And I think that part of the reason is because when they looked high and low and everywhere, there probably literally is nothing, because it's down in the defense contractors. And I think
I,
that was proof of it.
I would totally agree with you on that. I mean, and Olav, when you take a look at everything that was kind of going on with that whole report, I mean, Susan Goff, the PR person for the Pentagon, she was absolutely crucified over that. She became, public enemy number one around the Pentagon for trying to continue to dissuade any sort of this topic coming out at that time.
Right. But again, I think the big difference that I would say this time versus the other times is that, when they did Roswell Revealed or whatever it was, it they had the Air Force guy trot out there and say, no, it was this, it was ejection seat dummies, it was that. It was it was a lot more laughable. This was a lot more dry and uninteresting. And I think it's a shift. That's why I think it was designed to be that way. And potentially her crucifixion was part of the program, right? That they put her up there to do that, because, it's like, well, no, we're interested. We want to talk about it, but we don't have anything to say because it's a nothing burger. So I think it was interesting that it was presented very seriously, you know, but very devoid of anything at all.
Josh, you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think that it's very possible that that she was basically a purposeful scapegoat. But I also think it's very possible that the way that things were worded, that they delivered a report that is strategically um, specific, yet also not. So my example would be, if you say, how many jars of 10 millimeter bolts do we have? And they come back and they say, well, we don't have any jars of 10 millimeter bolts. But the true answer is that because they're all in boxes, right? And so it's kind of I think again, when I said kind of at the beginning of the show, is you have to look at maybe how they answered and what they didn't say. And I know it's exhausting. It's exhausting to go back through. You almost have to have an AI program to decipher, right, what they didn't say and what those answers could mean. But like I said, also, I do feel like it's like a chess game or maybe Pokemon. I don't know at this point, but they're playing their cards and they're pushing back and they're saying, no, we're not going to do what you want us to do. We're going to come out. We're going to release this BS report. And you don't, it's my ball. I'm going home. And that, of course, prompted a response from Congress, which introduced another public hearing, which introduced a whole bunch of other people to say, no, we do know that you got some stuff. So again, it just really feels like, because the government takes forever to do anything, that this is just a really long, drawn out, almost like a ritual at this point. That it's, Olav, I'd be interested to see your thoughts on this from the ritual comment. But like, is this some sort of a series of ritualistic dog and pony show appearances that have to occur before we get to the final gate, where we get to unlock that gate and see all the riches inside?
Well, one thing that I would say for certain is that your comment about the cards, one of the things we have to keep in mind is that you're playing cards with people where they're using a completely different deck than you could ever fathom, and you don't have the clearance to see what the deck is. So there's a deck, you're playing poker with the deck, but you don't know what the cards are, and they're not the cards you're used to. As far as the ritual element of it, I've believed for a long time that there are elements of the bureaucratic systems that exist in the world that function in a capacity that we don't necessarily understand. They're influenced, they're active participants. But yeah, when you look at certain things happen on certain days. For example, you know, here in America, we had 9/11, right? And 9/11 is this hugely traumatic event that nobody's ever going to forget. I could tell you exactly what I was doing, exactly what was going through my mind, like, or Kennedy or whatever. Well, 9/11 as a date actually has a whole bunch of interesting things that happen on the same date. For example, the Pentagon was opened on 9/11, right? Just many, many decades before. So you see these patterns around dates and around symbols and other things. So yeah, I do think there's definitely an element of that. I think that 99.9% of everybody who works for the government either doesn't know or doesn't care and is not involved in it. But there is this very small group of people that's multinational. It's not America, it's Canada, it's Mexico, it's Austria, it's Russia, it's Taiwan, Japan, Korea. I mean, they're all in it. And I do think there's a subtext there for sure.
Well, to me, it was something that was totally expected. We didn't expect them to give up anything. We expected them to try and shove it back under the rug after earlier in 2023, the United States Navy had come out and basically said, we don't want any more part of this. Stop asking us questions about it. We knew the Pentagon was going to follow suit with their report when it came to that. So it wasn't that surprising that it went on. Let's move on to March, where the Pentagon again released a comprehensive report on UAPs detailing historical records and current investigations. Pilots and aviation enthusiasts started sharing their experiences and theories on Instagram and TikTok. That started becoming very, very more public. And of course, former CIA Director John Brennan commented on the need to do better tracking for UFOs and UAPs. Whistleblower Ryan Graves, former Navy pilot, shared his experiences during a podcast review, which we saw a cube, not with his own eyes, but it was on radar. He couldn't see it with his own eyes. Lots was happening. Let's talk about some of the bigger name players like John Brennan and others, Olav, that were actually coming out and saying, hey, we got to start taking this a little bit more seriously.
Well, I find that Brennan's comment quite fascinating, because we can track a wrench that was left in orbit, but we can't tell what's flying around in the sky. I find that highly unlikely. I mean, we maybe do things that we should do a better job of, like tracking balloons, and just not writing them off. But I have a suspicion that, again, he's part of the complex. I mean, he was head of CIA. A wise man once told me that never trust anything that anybody says that came from the CIA ever, right? Because you don't just leave, and you have things in your head. They know where you are. So I think his statements were more diffusionary, that they were more, again, diffusing the situation. Yeah, we need to do a better job of tracking things. I mean, we have an entire air defense network that was designed to tell us when people we don't like are coming here. Just the other day, there was a there was a yet another intrusion by a bear. I think it was a bear bomber and a couple MiG-31s. And Elmendorf sends up their F-16s, and they goes fly, or F-22s, I guess now. They go fly next to them and say, go home. So we know that there's things in the sky. if we don't know, it's because they have some kind of advanced stealth capability, so that all these radar, radomes that we have everywhere can't seem to see them, and that they're not going to cop to that, because that's a bigger problem. But maybe, if you read in between the lines, maybe that's what he was trying to say, is that there are things up there that we can't track, that we know they're there, but we can't track them. So he was either trying to diffuse it, or he, in a way, was tacitly admitting that they can't track them. It's one or the other.
Well, let's bring in Nicole Sakach now on this. And Nicole, thank you for jumping in late here on the UFO Report. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Nicole, thank you for coming on in.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Sorry I'm late. I completely missed the topic or question at hand. So,
well, it's about players like we're into March. And I am going to give major credit to Nicole for helping me actually set up this show with dividing up what happened, the big stories of each and every month here in the world of ufology. When somebody is in need of something, if I'm in need of something, I always look to Nicole first, because she's kind of brilliant that way. And yeah, I am going to brag about you, Nicole. You have no choice about that. So we're into the month of March where organizations like the SCU published a paper analyzing commercial pilots' encounters. Ryan Graves comes out. John Brennan, the former CIA director, saying that UAPs need to be taken a little bit more seriously here. I think it was a busy month that really started to wind up the year. That's where the key got turned in the ignition, in my opinion.
I will agree with that. And I'm sorry I didn't hear our other guest comment, but the two highlights for me were the document done by the CIA and Director Brennan making such a comment. I mean, it wasn't a great grand slam sort of comment, but just for a former director to even be speaking on the topic was, exhilarating for me. So, hell of a month.
But he was one of those other big names coming out and starting to open up about this conversation. That's what we were into with Olav and Josh here. So, it was nice to see some different names who we recognize from talking in the media, whether it's on CNN or Fox News or wherever it may be, finally opening up the conversation, saying, yeah, we got something going on here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I know maybe we didn't bring it up yet, but Bill Nelson talking so openly on behalf of NASA and seemingly to be excited about the topic and wanting to contribute and add to it in a, I guess, a functional way moving forward, I guess is a way to put it. And with people like him and Brennan adding their voices to, this loud melee of ufology, that does hold some weight and credit that people are seriously looking at this. And especially somebody formerly of the CIA. We always hear about maybe their involvement with looking at different factions within ufology from time to time. And yeah, so it's good to get any of these guys on record, I think.
I think it's absolutely great. What about this SCU, the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, coming out, Josh, and basically saying, hey, we're tracking these commercial pilots who are taking things down, and we're really looking into these reports of what airline pilots and trained observers are seeing. What was your thoughts on that?
I mean, I thought it was very interesting. Especially I was intrigued because I think towards the end of 2023, Ben Hansen even dropped in like some docu-series or something that they were looking at commercial pilots and everything that they had seen. We know that that's a big segment of, pilots, before we had maybe only heard from military pilots, but, commercial pilots are in the air a lot. And I think it's pretty much an understatement. And so they likely are seeing things and don't have a mechanism necessarily to report them. And so I think it's definitely an interesting untapped a segment of the commercial not commercial, but the population, that, if we give them kind of the same anonymity, if necessary, to come forward, as what's been kind of given to military pilots or military personnel, I think that we would probably see more and more commercial pilots be willing to come forward. I mean, again, later in the year, but a good example of that would be the event in Oregon that happened, just a few weeks ago.
Olav, what's your thoughts? We'll get you to unmute there, Olav.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hang on. Yeah, I've spaced on the question. Sorry, can you repeat it?
Just in regards to the Scientific Coalition of UAP studies really digging into pilot accounts and pilot reports.
Well, I think pilot encounters are probably the greatest thing that we have, because they're fundamentally trained observers. They understand, like I said before, they understand the aerodynamics, they understand the flight, how flight controls work, how a plane works. So if a pilot gives you a sighting, that's like platinum, right? So I think that them analyzing pilot sightings is critical, because we can't expect anybody else to do it. We have to kind of do it for ourselves. You're not going to get some magic report out of NASA or the Pentagon, the FAA saying, hey, we analyzed all these sighting reports from pilots. This is what we figured it out. We need to do it ourselves. So I think analyzing pilot sightings is urgent and critical, because they are the best sightings that we can get, short of it landing in front of you and you filming it.
Tim, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. The way I'm looking at it too is that these guys, like you said, are trained observers, and they've been seeing this stuff for years and been reluctant to say anything. And I think that in this day with the social media and just say Twitter and whatever it is, these people are putting stuff out, and this is what I saw, this is what I heard, and they're talking amongst each other. They've created groups. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. So thank God somebody grabbed a hold of it and started taking it seriously, because I mean, it was out there anyway. So if they've got a place to report, they've got a place to talk about it, they've got a place to whatever, share their experiences and tell somebody that's going to say, hey, don't worry about it, let us know what's going on. That's a good thing. And I mean, like you say, it was always military for years, right? That it was always the military that saw stuff. It was never commercial pilots, or they didn't want to say that they saw anything. But I thought it was a good idea. I think it was a great idea for them.
Well, and just to tack onto that, the most critical element of what you just said is that they're willing to come forward now. And I'll take you guys back to the beginning of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They're watching the UFO on radar fly around. They got two commercial pilots on there who are watching it, reporting back to air traffic control what they're seeing. And at the end, when the thing vanishes, they go, do you want to report it? And the first guy says, no, I don't want to report it. The second pilot says, and he kind of shuts off the mic, turns it back on and goes, yeah, we don't want to report that. Well, now they will. They have a place to go. They have people who will think about it, analyze it. So I think what you said, that part about the pilots being willing to report it, whether they're commercial or military, again, that's platinum.
I love it. I love it. Nicole, we have 1 minute to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. It's our UFO look at the year. We're looking into the month of March. Your final thoughts on the SCU, basically giving the thumbs up to pilots coming forward.
I think the whole idea of the SCU is to be able to back up the public and these different sectors and be able to collate the data that is collected and hopefully bring more data to the table. So I know sometimes they don't seem like they're a sexy group and they're pushing out like information constantly, but what they do is they take their time and they have several people collaborating to sort of validate or throw out their data and give us the best information that they can. So I think they'll continue to improve and to be able to back up these other sectors within ufology, whether it's public sightings reported to MUFON or military sightings working their way through the system. So
I love it. All right, everybody on the panel, we got Tim James, our UFO reporter, podcaster, researcher Josh Rutledge, author, podcaster, and publisher Olav Phillips, and researcher and cook Nicole Sakach. We'll be back with getting into springtime of 2024 on the UFO Report.
This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Nicole, I'm so glad you made it.
oh my gosh, I am too. I'm so glad that I'm pounding coffee at 12 o'clock at night.
I'll be right back, guys. You guys chat away. Make my chair move.
What's your cat's name, Nicole?
Well, there's actually two of them. They're
Okay.
sisters running around, and they're Christmas kittens this year. So Santa brought us kittens about a week or so ago, and their names, after much deliberation, are Daphne and Velma Dew.
Wow. Very cute.
Thank you. So yeah, it's wild. I've never had two cats this young at the same time before. So, oh my gosh.
Were they already litter box trained, or
They were the whole shebang. And
Okay.
actually, Santa even gave me money along with each cat and a specific vet to take them to all of their first appointments. So
Oh,
I
wow.
couldn't believe it, but actually free kitties plus a bonus. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
very nice elves helped arrange that for me and Santa and my son. So Christmas joy to everyone. They have to get bigger before I can give Linda Moulton Howell a run for her money and hold each cat.
Yeah,
Hers are chocolate and fluffy. Mine are Daphne and Velma. So I love it.
I've got two cats as well, although they are somewhere else in the house.
Right.
One, my 4-year-old named, so its name is Kitty Whiskers.
Oh, nice.
And then the other one, we're a Disney house, and so her name is Ariel. So,
Oh, perfect. I probably would have named one of these Ariel when I was small. We have a dog too, so it's been the last couple of weeks of trying to acclimate them to because the little kittens, they don't care. They're like, hey, what's up with you?
yeah,
But that's why I was like, oh my gosh, she just snuck past the dog. He's like asleep in the kitchen. And I was like, this could be bad for radio. Cat dog fight.
yeah. We have a dog as well. She was actually adopted after we had our two cats, so she was the new in the house.
That might be the way to go. But the Space Out Radio audience gets Buster every once in a while. He'll flop up in my lap and stick his puppy mug up in the camera. But now he's got competition.
Yep. Cuteness competition.
That's true. Hi, space travelers. I'm not reading the chat room, but I know you're all in there. You'll have to tell Dirty Filth that we've got new cats for the radio. You guys kind of flew through the first couple months of the year. I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if we're, on for 3 hours, you want to cover about 4 months per hour, I guess, you get all 12 in.
We would hope. I'm just glad, honestly, there's enough news to fill every single month.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably always enough news depending on how far down in the barrel you want to dig, right?
Right. But I mean, if you rule out like a like historical cases, like reviewing things from years ago, like that true,
Right.
like
Recent news, yeah.
yeah.
So don't stop talking just because I showed up. Pull
Hi
in your
Dave's
Well,
Dave's beard.
We would have to stop talking about you, and so we have to.
I hear you. You got about 90 seconds. Big hello to Ben Eubanks coming on in, Brianne, Amanda Carroll, and who else is joining us? MJ. Let's see here. Who else we got? Oh, we're caught up there. Caught up. Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell to our channel, because we are literally here 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet Robbie G on the weekends.
Yeah.
Little Timmy James 3 nights a week. You know, we like to be here for you. And Josh, give a shout out to your channel if you don't mind.
Yep, it's Mystic Journeys on YouTube.
Love it. Love it. Thank you tonight to Lee, Richard, Deb Aruni, Stephen, and Gary's Beard for 2 separate 5 separate super chats there. We really do appreciate it. And let me see here. 17. Josh, 17.
17? It's close. It's close. Not on it, though.
Rona Davies, welcome to SOR Chat. And Mama Catherine. Mwah! Merry Christmas to you, my dear. I hope you're feeling better. Here we go, everyone. Here we go with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's UFOs all night long live. It's a year in review, and we got a great panel here discussing the year that was. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Narishkite. Narishkite is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we have on our UFO year in review, we have Olav Phillips here, author, researcher, great guy, fantastic beard, wears plaid well. We have our UFO report guy, Tim James, from Mystic Journeys podcast YouTube channel, Josh Rutledge, and from the Weird Desk, one of the greatest researchers in ufology today, Nicole Sakach, joining us for the month that was. So we're going to take a look at April now, because April saw congressional hearings on UAPs, featured testimonies from former military personnel, reigniting public interest. Oh, Nicole, let's get your take on that.
Well, I mean, ever since they started, you know, it's sort of been like, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? We were kind of like hoping to get a hearing of some sort every 6 months, I think, or maybe even more, but they haven't increased. But maybe I think the frequency of like the closed sessions where people are going and giving their testimony directly to staffers and certain Congress people, I think that has increased. And yeah, I mean, anytime the hearings come out, we pull them apart and say, why didn't they mention more? Why didn't they bring this up? Why aren't they naming specific sources or researchers and things like that? So, but each one I think does create enough stir that it does reach further into the public. You know, I've never had more people approach me just kind of hearing what I do and then bring it up themselves, or start to ask more and more than just Roswell.
It was also a year, everybody, of whistleblowers. All right. Kevin Day came out and testified about what happened at the 2004 USS Nimitz encounter. Kristen Gillibrand was wanting more people to come out, wanting increasing funding. They talked a lot about whistleblowers. This was also the times, even in the month previous, that we were talking about Jason Sands coming out. And, right here on Spaced Out Radio with Courtney, when she was doing the UFO report, we had a story about his encounter with an alien at Area 51, allegedly, and, now it kind of goes by where, we played the game basically saying, hey, we'll keep this quiet, after some very tense phone calls between groups and that we might get in trouble with this. No, this is all true. I haven't even really mentioned this on the air, where there were some very tense phone calls that we may have stirred up the streams. And I remember I had one person from the NSA that I know call me up and say, Dave, you may not have wanted to talk about that on the air. I'm like, well, I got it from a couple different sources, so it's not like we're saying anything wrong, but it all ended up coming out in James Fox's latest film that was just released, The Program. And even though they cut out the one part where the alien was apparently saying, no, I'm not going over to the base because they'll kill me. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot that was going on with whistleblowers, Olav. We'll get you to unmute.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm a little slow sometimes to the mute button. Yeah. I mean, whistleblowers, there was a lot, pilots and I mean, just all kinds of different people that came out. And I think some of it was really good. You had the guy from the Nimitz and some of the pilots but whistleblowers are a mixed bag. You've got somebody comes forward and says something. And I used to know a guy named Bill Uhouse, and Bill Uhouse, his thing was that he dealt with aliens, and I think at S4, and it's a very famous story because the alien, the EVE that he interacted with, apparently liked strawberry ice cream. And it was always, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. But whistleblowers, you never. Sometimes you do, like the guys from the Nimitz or the pilots. It's very straightforward. This is what military. This is what I saw. This is what it did. This is what I saw. This is what it did. But when you get more sophisticated whistleblowers, you always have to step back a little bit and say, okay, well, what's really going on here, right? Because I always go back to what was his name, Bob Oshler. Right, he was a whistleblower, and he had them dead to rights. He had Bobby Ray Inman on audio tapes admitting UFOs are real. They have bodies. There's wreckage. There's programs. And then one day he gets this mysterious letter from this guy Guardian, who's a whistleblower, sends him this video. So of course Oshler takes it to sightings, and everybody else will listen. And it turns out that it was an RCMP helicopter landing to airlift a hiker that had broken his leg or something. There's all these Mountie police vehicles and cops all over the place, and it's a helicopter, but he went to town with it because a whistleblower told him. So on one hand, I'm happy that all these whistleblowers are coming out and saying stuff, but I think as a group, and remember, I think UFOs are real, right? But I think as a group, we have to take each one individually to decide, is this a good whistleblower? Is this moving the greater agenda of disclosure or transparency or knowledge forward? So I'm happy they're all coming out, but I think we also need to segment them and take some of them with a grain of salt.
Whistleblowers, Josh, are you a fan of them? Do you agree with them? Do we need more? We'll get you to hit your mute button now.
I was trying to be like Olav. So was that successful? I don't know. So I mean, I think that yes, we obviously need more whistleblowers. I think it's interesting too, and I don't know if this is a pattern or if it's, if it is, it maybe seems to point to something bigger in the way that things are happening. But we first heard from pilots in the Navy, and then we later heard from people who were in the intelligence community within the government, and then we, now we're hearing more from even Chris Mellon, who wrote, the foreword for Lou Elizondo's book. He says a lot in that that he has not, I don't think, openly said publicly. So it's almost like there's a progression of, we got the first layer with the boots on the ground folks, and then we got the second layer with the intelligence folks, and then the third layer with like people in leadership. And so it almost feels like there's a progression as to how deep we continue to get these whistleblowers that come forward. And I don't know, like I said, if that's by design or not. I do think it's really interesting too that, like Nicole said, these testimonies and these hearings and things, I don't think are meant for this audience, right? They're meant for the people who have been, tangentially following the topic for a few years, or even, just happen to know that their cousin or uncle talk about it at family gatherings, and for the most part, stay away from it. But that's really who it's for. It's to get those people to engage, right? To want to be in the know, to make phone calls to their Congress people that will then kind of further that interest so that they'll further having the necessary conversations in the skiffs and so on and so forth.
Nicole, your thoughts on all the whistleblowers? Is this worthy testimony of what we are wanting and needing in this field to move it forward?
Yes, I do think it's worthy. And just while you guys were all chit-chatting, it's funny because I sent you a whole bunch of notes earlier, and now I'm like, darn it, they're on a different device. I don't have my notes in front of me. But I know it won't fall into the month by month. But if I'm remembering correctly, we kind of started the year going, who's going to be next? Who's going to be next? Grush had sort of come out and was promising more people to come. Eric Davis had made some comments, which he's been considered a whistleblower in the past, or maybe like a hostile whistleblower. I don't think he really wanted to blow his whistle. But then like we sort of got like this outpour as soon as Sands started being like whispered about, or who possibly was being interviewed for the program. Well, and not all related to the program, but it started this waterfall or cascade, because we had Jason Sands come forward. Names like John Estridge got floated out along with his, and Scott Andrews. And then we had players show up like Sarah Gam from the UAPTF, from the task force, and a couple others. The newest one is Kurt Mitchell. Like, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. It's got a couple extra letters in it. It's kind of strange. But we also were really hearing like Lou's book is coming. And then all of a sudden we got Jay Stratton coming out on Skinwalker Ranch and starting to join like a public arena in this very like one person removed sort of way. So, and now we find out he's writing a book, and, more is to come from him as well. And I think I mentioned Carl Nell. He came forward as well. That was the SALT conference where he spoke. That was huge. He was just flat out like, undeniable, I believe it without a doubt, to the entire world. So that's my summary, my year in review of all the whistleblowers. We also had people, if I'm remembering, lots of people popped up on the Sean Ryan show, and with Dr. Greer. So many whistleblowers chose that avenue of disclosure rather than just announcing themselves to Twitterverse on X or being in a movie.
That is one thing that I think, even looking at Jason Sands, that we saw a lot of, Nicole, was that these whistleblowers were not choosing traditional ways to go and bring their story out. They started really going on on a lot of bigger name podcasts, but more so X Spaces. We really saw X Spaces take off with these whistleblowers getting in on them and trying to tell their story for hours. Like I think Jason Sands, the first time that he went on, which was a shock to all of us, he was on just popped on an X Space for like 6 hours. He was asking questions.
It was Michael Herrera. That's who I was trying to think of that came forward on like Sean Ryan and had kind of, I think, talked to Dr. Greer before. But he also, I think, showed up in a few X Spaces and talked. And then, there's another name, I forget, but he had an encounter on a base as well with his partner on patrol and like had the block of missing time. And then they appeared on the different side of the base. And one of the AFOSI guys that investigated it was like a young Rick Doty, like he wasn't in charge, but he was there. That all kind of unfolded in Twitter Spaces as well, which was kind of like, what? You know, these little pieces got put together for contactees and experiencers. So,
but is X? Let me ask you guys this though: is an X Space a good place for a whistleblower to go and tell their story right off the bat in a really uncontrolled environment? Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking about that while listening to everybody speak, and all very good points. But my brain immediately goes to the standard channel, or the regular channel, if you will, that a whistleblower follows, has kind of led to that brick wall of, just go easy. We don't want you to talk. The way that I see it is to you can't plug 900 holes in a dam if they're all over the place. So if everybody's out and the whistleblowers are out there and they're hitting X Spaces, they're hitting whatever, Twitter Spaces, what podcasts, whatever it may be, it's coming from all different angles now. So it's less controllable by the people that want to control that narrative than I would suggest it is if it's coming from them from 50. You can dodge, a dodgeball, one dodgeball coming at you straight at you. But when they're coming from 20 different directions, good luck trying to stop them all. So that information is going to get out. And I think that, my opinion is, I think that's a great idea. Why not? It's a different way of approaching it, right?
I think one of the things with Jason Sands, though, and I agree with you, but one of the things about Jason Sands and his story was he had teed it up to everybody who was kind of figuring out who he was, us included.
Right.
That, guys, go easy on me here. This is new to me. I'm scared for my career. I'm scared for my job. I'm scared, about the repercussions. I'll let you know when it's safe to come, that I can come out and talk about this. And then I want to wait until James Fox's movie comes out, and so on and so forth. Then all of a sudden, boom, here he is on a 6-hour, deep dive into his career on X, which was great because it kicked off a bunch of new chats online, but it also, he had to answer some very difficult questions that kind of made him look unbelievable, I think would be a truthful statement. When you start talking 20 and back, where you've disappeared for 20 years and then brought back at the same age, I mean, that's Corey Good type stuff there. Right. Josh, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I am mixed opinion on, so I think that there's a lot of credibility that comes from going through official or proper channels when it comes to, getting your story out there. So like going to, a New York Times or a Washington Post or someplace like that, and having, an actual journalistic, review of what you're saying, and finding, people who can corroborate your story and so on and so forth, versus going on to a space like, X or, YouTube or whatever the case may be, and spilling your story there, because there's no opportunity then for anybody to, again, do that kind of journalistic review. You've already put it out there, kind of in the social sphere. And so that's where I think, sometimes at least in my opinion, going to those places first, for me, impacts the credibility of the whistleblower, simply because they didn't, for whatever reason, go through a more journalistic review. Now, if a podcaster or whatever has enough, ahead notice that this is what's going to be discussed, then they can do some of that kind of journalistic review. I think that's appropriate, because then they can ask those appropriate questions, in the interview, to try to get to that information. But I think that sometimes using those more laxed resources as the jumping off point hurts your credibility for your story.
All right, let's move over to May. And that's where we got into some early sightings of drones in New Jersey.
What?
Yeah. It's where it began. Local residents started tracking them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and all sorts of places. And then our favorite group ever, Enigma Labs. Yeah, Enigma Labs. And on my recommendation, please don't ever send your YouTube or your UFO data to them unless you want the U.S. government to get your personal information, allegedly. You always got to follow up with an allegedly, then you're safe.
Yep.
Right? Olav Phillips, Enigma Labs launched a new app for real-time UAP reporting. What's your thoughts on Enigma Labs? Are tied to Peter Thiel and all sorts of government contractors, even though they're not a government contractor themselves?
Well, this is the same problem that I have with the To the Stars Academy and NIDS and even MUFON at this point. You have to look at who you're talking to. And if you're sending it to a place like the To the Stars Academy, their entire board of directors are spooks. MUFON sold the entire sightings database with contact information to the US government as part of their contract. It's more of the same. NIDS was funded by DoD. I mean, you have to look at what you're talking to, who you're talking to. And by the way, to the last thing you said, I do find it somewhat suspect that people go directly to Twitter or X or whatever, Blue Sky, any of these. I think there is a value, just like with Enigma Labs, there's a value of where you're sending the information or who you're talking to. And I find it highly suspect if Air Force AFOSI officers or investigators are doing anything on X. I would find that highly, highly, highly suspect. But yeah, no, I'm not okay with it.
Nicole, I know you're a big fan of Enigma Labs and everything that they honestly stand for, even though we don't know the names of their directors. We don't know the names of their investigators. Alice refuses to, cover up her last name at the original Seoul conference last year. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness around Enigma Labs.
Well, we can't hold that against her. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness just by being in the taxonomy of this community. We're all loons, I guess is one way to put it. And I didn't go to the first Soul, but I did get to go to the second one. And I tell you what, there's so many people walked around with their ID or their thing backwards, just so it was still not even showing. Like, the only people you had to flash it to were the people checking you in at the door to make sure you weren't sneaking in, or you were really there for the event. But I think Enigma is an enigma. I think they name themselves well. I wish I could run into Alice, like just somewhere in ufology, whether she might be operating under an alias on social media and having conversations. But I hear that she has a very interesting team, like working around her. And for Enigma, I'd like to know like her interests. And as far as like people that fund ufology, I think we always find something about them to be nefarious, or we want it to be nefarious. Like Robert Bigelow was such a mystery back in the day. It's like, who's this hotel tycoon, you know? And when they were poaching Joe Firmage's money, you know, it was like, who's this web.com kid, you know, out of nowhere, or Church's Chicken guy. So we find these with like Peter, you know, he's very eccentric, but
Let's hold that thought. We'll get back to it. We're into the month of May on the UFO Year in Review.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
I have to learn how to talk faster like Grant Cameron so I can fit in everything that I want in a time frame.
Getting there. You're getting there.
I got to check out these OSI guys that are posting on X. I find that highly suspicious. I'll have to
You
find
know,
that.
I wanted to add to that part of the conversation, because I did have sort of a backseat insider glimmer into Courtney and Jason Sands and their X space. That may have seemed you know, like the first time he was trying to tell his story in a full form kind of way, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, because he had gone to James Fox already. He had gone, I think, to several people. And I think by the time he did that X space, he was kind of fed up with being told not to talk or when to talk or what that sort of disclosure plan was. Because that's also around the time where we started hearing that, oh, what's the other term for like chaos disclosure or disruption disclosure? You know, even Mellon came out and was like, we need planned disclosure, not, sorry, I'm so tired. I can't think of the phrase right now, but yeah, so that got me with that. Like, I think Jason was genuine in wanting to connect with like the community and how he came out.
I agree.
Now the things surrounding that, it seems like there's never the lone whistleblower anymore. It's not just the one person kept a secret, went to one person, they flushed it all out, they brought a person forward. It does seem, and maybe this is the safety in numbers sort of thing happening, but you know, Steve came forward kind of simultaneously to support what he knew about Jason Sands, and then sharing his story. He, you know, obviously also supported Anjali. You know, she had helped him and he had helped her, sort of thing, coming out of the farm that they all worked for. So that, I think, is interesting. So if we see, you know, maybe that buddy system, maybe that'll give him the confidence. You know, I felt bad for David Grush coming out the way he did. It felt like he was like dangled out for like the wolves.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
All right, I'll be right back. We're on break, right?
We're on break. We got 2.5 minutes. What do you say there, Josh? You still having fun?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How can you not have fun on Spaced Out
Right,
Radio?
exactly. If you're not having fun, you were never meant to be here.
Mm-hmm.
How did it go with Hynek? I didn't watch that show, but
Oh, it was fun. He's not funny. He's funny.
Not.
Yeah. Honestly, the guy's one of the most hilarious, dry humored people I've ever encountered. Cracks me up, but I have to go with the not funny thing. It was so funny because, what was it, 2022? We spoke together at different times, in at UFO Con in San Francisco. And I had met Paul the year before, and he was just hilarious. And I figured, you know what, I'm going to stir it up with him because I get his humor. So I cut it right in the middle of my presentation. I cut out and I said, this is just your friendly reminder that Paul Hynek is not funny. Okay. He's not funny. Don't laugh at his jokes. Okay. Because they're the same every time. And so he was like, you son of a bitch. Right. The next day, he changed his entire thing and put a couple of slides of me in there, you know, and was making fun of me. So then we both speak at MUFON in Denver. And I had like 400 people sitting there, and I'm like, oh, this is a friendly reminder that, you know, you're going to get to speak to or hear Paul Hynek speak tomorrow. Just remember, he's going to throw some really lame jokes at you. He's not funny. Right. And he did he got me back. And people were coming up to us. Do you and Paul have a beef against each other? No, not at all. You know, here we go, everybody. Or we got 7 seconds. So it was good. Thank you, Mama Catherine, and the rest of you for the super chats. I'll give the full list after. Here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's a year in review of UFOs in 2024. My name is Dave Scott, and we're glad to bring you this show live every night. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives or head to any major podcast network. They're always free. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's panel, joining me talking about the UFO year that was, podcaster, researcher Josh Rutledge. From the Weird Desk, Nicole Sakach, one of the best researchers in ufology. From the UFO Report, little Timmy James is here. And podcaster, researcher, author, producer, Olav Phillips, and his plaid shirts are here as well. All right, we are in the month of May. We're talking just about the Enigma Labs coming up. Robert Salas comes out and is getting serious as well about the UFO incident at Malmstrom Air Base where they were shutting off the nuclear weapons. The one thing I loved about this was that he finally got his day to speak to people about this, people who needed to hear it. The other thing, if I play the other side of it, that I didn't like about it, and this is just me being nitpicky here, okay, was the fact that we had known this story in UFO land for a couple decades. And they're acting like it was brand new news. But to steal a line from Nicole, you know, the 2017s know nothing prior to 2004. So, and yes, Nicole, I've used that line a lot. You know, Olav, let's get your opinion on this regarding Robert Salas finally getting his due and talking to people as a whistleblower.
Well, I think it's great news, you know, because he's rock solid. It's like the guys from Rendlesham, you know, it's rock solid. The you know, it's on paper, like it happened. He's been talking about it for decades, saying the same thing. I mean, I think he's the kind of quote unquote whistleblower you want. You know, he's got a good track record. He did everything he said he did. He's not saying, well, I mean, it's crazy in the sense of, okay, this object comes in and shuts down an entire missile field. And what he talked about it doing is dangerous. But he hasn't really profited from it in the way that a lot of people have. You know, you look at the Corey Goods of the world, you know, I mean, I think he's a great witness and somebody who experienced something that I'm sure was very traumatic for him. You know, I've known missileers, guys that worked down in the silos, as well as, you know, they ran the stuff, various types of missiles above the ground. These guys are rock solid. Like they don't flinch. But I could see him knowing what that thing was doing, causing him quite a bit of trauma, considering they're dealing with an entire missile field, ballistic missiles that can absolutely eradicate millions of people. So I think that he's very well spoken, very articulate. So I think it's great that he actually got his day to speak and that people listened. So I was very happy about that.
Nicole, your thoughts, Robert Salas.
I think, well, of course, it takes me back to the citizens' hearing. They put that on, and there was just whistleblower after whistleblower after whistleblower for, I think it was 2 or 3 days long, that sort of first mock hearing. And then we have our official one, and all I keep thinking of is like Moultrie, and I think his name was Bray, sitting there like 2 kids that are like in the principal's office, like getting asked about all these cases. And the nuclear aspect cases like Bob Salas and Maelstrom, and I think what was the one with the missile was that Minot, and where it came in and like the laser hit the missile. So for them to sit there all like blinky eyed, like, oh my God, do you know what they're talking about? I don't know what they're talking about. We have to say we don't know. Like, that was kind of like a slap in the, or I guess like a gut check almost of like how much they really don't know. Like the people that are supposed to know don't know, or they just flat out played dumb and lied to us. So that was an interesting hearing. So then to follow it up with our hearings to come, and we keep hearing that we'll hear from firsthand witnesses. Well, that's exactly Bob Salas. And we kept hearing we might hear from actual like researchers instead of maybe celebrity researchers. And so it was nice to hear from Bob Salas on that level too, because, he had to do his own due diligence and research his own case for how long, and get people to pay attention to him. And he did solid work. He tracked down everything. He shows his bona fides, I guess is one way to put it. And he had a successful career. He's not a loon. He's not a drunk. He's not a crazy, like any of those things. So we couldn't ask for a better witness. And I think that goes for Robert Hastings as well. I think we should have public hearings before the world, and both the Bobs should sit there next to each other, or at least Hastings' diligent research should be entered into record as well. Like the Wilson Davis notes were, and like Schellenberger's manifesto that he just submitted. Or I'm sorry, maybe Schellenberger and Corbell. Corbell was the silent partner in that.
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Jeremy Corbell, and seems to have his fingers in a little bit of everything.
That's okay. That's okay. Just like
a shot at him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a positive. I mean, he literally is everywhere. I mean, a lot of people don't like him. They feel he's brash. He's a little cocky and arrogant about it. But you know what? There are people on the inside who are giving him information, and he's filtering it.
Well, that kind of goes back to the way people can come forward now these days, whether it's in a social media platform, but there are these avenues. It's not just like Blue Crew Disclosure Team. You have to go to Arrow or them, you can still go to Dr. Greer. You can approach, Danny Sheehan's Institute. You can go to Sean Ryan and get on a podcast. Or you can do it yourself. Like there's so many kind of hopeful things that come along with that as well. But then there's also the counterintelligence trap.
Very true. Josh, your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for those that are wanting to spin all of this as a threat narrative, Dave, you and I have talked about this quite a bit in the past. But for all those that want to spin it as a threat narrative, Bob Salas, is that ultimate threat narrative card to play, right? I mean, he's got this, account where they can shut down our nukes. Well, obviously, if you're looking at it from a threat narrative perspective, that's a threat. We need to figure out what these things are, and what can we do to stop them, and blah blah blah. So I mean, I think that Bob coming forward, people maybe in the know, or people who are trying to be in the know in the government, really ought to take, again, if that's their goal, is to treat this as a threat narrative and get funding for research and so on and so forth. He's your guy. I'll also say that, for the most part, his, with a few little, inconsistencies across his story hasn't really changed that much at all in the course of him telling it. And at no point in time has he, backed anything, up or changed his tune, or whatever the case would be. And I think it was maybe Nicole, or you said that he hasn't really profited from it, as much as some others. So I think that's usually the tell for most people in our community. I don't know why, but if somebody profits off a story, it must be, because they made up parts of it or whatever. But the fact that he has not, if anything, should solidify him as a sound witness.
Well, I think they profit. When I made that comment, I think one of the things that you see is that, everybody should profit from the books they write or their podcasts or whatever. I think having profit at all is not necessarily the litmus test. I think it's more of just just absolute categorical profiting from it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And really taking it wide, getting every penny out of it you can, and doubling down. And I think that's the one thing about Salas. Salas has never doubled down. And maybe I'll get beat up for it, but never, Lazari, he profited from it, sure, but he never changed his story. From 1989 till now, the fundamental story still is the same as the day I sat across his desk from him, and he told me about Mariani shooting holes in the back of his Corvette. And he showed me the Corvette where the hole was. It's but yeah, you definitely know when they're doubling down and profiting off of it, like existentially. And that's where I share your leeriness of their story. I just wanted to clarify.
All right, let's move on to the month of June, because hard to believe we're already running out of time. We're only halfway through the year. International Conference of UAPs in Geneva, Switzerland, that brought together scientists, military officials, researchers. A lot of people going there. A lot of people talking. Whistleblowers, Luis Elizondo, David Grush, Christopher Mellon, shared their experiences and insights there, Nicole. We'll get you to unmute yourself.
I said,
Be like Olav.
this is, I think I'm an original unmuter. I think this is one of those things where we didn't really realize it was happening at the time. And we heard about it in bits and pieces as people were sort of jet setting or back. It seemed like they were backpacking through the UK, like there was situations and plans and reverse plans and A, B's, and C's, all to misdirect people of what was really going on. But yeah, I think a lot of people threw in on that. There's also some, I think it was around June, where OSA, I think it was a Japan UAP conference, and it was kind of a big deal for a bunch of sort of Asian countries over there in that pocket of the world. So that part is interesting to me. So yeah, June sort of lit it up. Mellon was making some very strong statements on the Twitterverse, I think, at that time. So there was some very interesting posts. And of course, it was still being hyped that David Grush's op-ed might come out still. That was kind of hopeful that we might see that, and that still hasn't happened. And then, of course, Lou's book was still being talked about, that we were going to have to buckle up because something big was coming. And yeah, and more Jason Sands.
It was all about Jason Sands. You know, the idea, though, that a lot of these very, very influential American people talking about this, going out of country. This is, like Lou Elizondo seems to do a lot of work in the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
And we've kind of, to pull a Nicole here, they always seem to have, every American insider seems to have their Brits. They seem to have their Brits somewhere. And, Olav, a lot of these guys have took their stories first out of country in order to get the ball rolling on an international level. How do you feel about that?
I think it's interesting. I think some of it is because of the way that you're protected in certain parts of the world. In Europe, they have protections that we don't have for some of these things. I think it's also, a fairly receptive audience to it. And it's maybe a good way to do a trial balloon to see how people react to it. I would say for a genuine whistleblower, doing it outside the United States is more dangerous because the rules that apply inside the United States, for example, the CIA cannot operate legally inside the United States. Now we know they do. We've heard about the drug running and the other guns and other stuff, but they're not supposed to. And when you set foot outside the United States, even to Canada, you have operatives. I'll just say operatives have a much more expansive set of rules that they can work with. But I do think it's probably mostly related to some of the protections that are afforded people. There's more of a freedom of press in some ways there, where we can be very puritanical and rigid. In Europe, they're a little bit more open. So I think it's a great place to do a trial balloon, see how people react to it. That'd be my thought.
All right, just your thoughts on that, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually have to agree with everything that Olav said. I mean, I think that we are really the U.S. is very, very conservative in its views of anything that we would classify as paranormal, strange, whatever the case may be. Whereas I think other parts of the world, Europe and the UK, are not nearly as conservative as the U.S. is. It's really funny how like post-industrial revolution, all of a sudden, our people used to believe in fairies and things, but now all of a sudden none of that stuff is even possible to exist. It's just really interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's very much still in the normal, I think, everyday conversation in other parts of the world. So yes, I do agree that it's kind of like a dry run, if you will, for floating all the information to a broader world audience in a place or in an area where it'd be better received, to see what the response would be. And I also think that other governments of the world are maybe waiting to see what the U.S. government is going to say on the record, officially about a lot of these topics. And so by taking this road show, if you will, around to other parts of the world, it maybe greases the skid, so to speak, in getting those other world governments to also go on record and say what they know.
All right, let's move on to July, where we had a lot going on. This is where it really seemed to go. And Tim, I promise we'll get you talking.
Oh, that's all good. Oh, I'm enjoying
momentarily. Started off with a leaked video from a Navy training exercise showing a fast-moving UFO, reigniting debates about military transparency. And then, of course, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, Chief Wiggum himself, saying, "Nothing to see here, people. Nothing to see here." And in the meantime, David Fravor, the commander of the F-18 that intercepted the Tic Tacs, comes out with additional details of the Nimitz encounter. It was a busy month there, Nicole.
I know people hate it when I say this, but I honestly love Arrow, and I enjoyed Sean Kirkpatrick throwing in, even after he resigned and we had the interim guy. He was still making all these bold public comments, but I know people hated every Arrow report that came out, and just immediately wrote it off. But I had said from the beginning, I think Arrow was handed an impossible task, and Sean Kirkpatrick was told, make it work, with no staff, no budget, XYZ. And I'm still going to stand by. I think it's the best use of my taxpayer dollars in this overtaxed world that we live in today. So I'm all for it. Let's keep Arrow going. This new guy's going to be great. But yeah, Sean Kirkpatrick, he towed the khaki pant mafia line with the Arrow reports. He did.
Oh, you and I are on such different planes when it comes to that.
I know. I shock people when I talk about Arrow like that. So
I hear you. Tim, your thoughts. Sean Kirkpatrick, I know you and him, would like to have a game of canasta together.
Absolutely. No, I have to agree with Nicole at a certain point. Like, yeah, he was told to toe the line, and I get it, but they could have picked at least somebody a little bit more personable that didn't, for me anyway. He drove me nuts. And I mean, even when Arrow came out with reports, like, oh yeah, we've investigated. And then all the people that were on the Nimitz and stuff are going, well, nobody ever came and talked to us about it. And they've concluded, and yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, to believe that they knew nothing is, hard to believe. But to believe that they knew something, it seemed that was hard to believe too. And he just, like you say, the Chief Wiggins, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see here. And yeah, I don't necessarily know. I mean, what they put on paper, what Arrow's supposed to be about, what it's supposed to do. It just looks like a big red herring hanging in a window.
The best part, I'm sorry, I got to jump back in. The best part of all of that was Mellon's signal messages about Grush and Kirkpatrick and all of that coming out like through FOIA or a tip. I forget how it actually went down. But there was a lot of backpedaling, and he said, went down this way, and it was like, show the receipts. Boom, here's my screenshot. I was just floored through all of that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Josh, let's get your opinion on Sean Kirkpatrick's nothing to see here speech.
I mean, I really felt like it was like another Condon report, like, like the whole thing around, he had already, I think, made up his mind on what he was going to say when he was asked that question. And there was nothing that was going to sway him one way or the other. I mean, it really felt like a wash of whatever, again, whatever was there that they had to present. He wasn't going to present that. He had already written it off as, nope, this is all I'm going to say. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, I would agree. Olav, we got about a minute here before we go to break.
You can't investigate something by not talking to people. I mean, it's just that simple. Condon report, Roswell case closed, UAP report. It's all the same thing. There's just
it did take them a really long time to get their website operational, and I think they've still only made one post on X.
and why should they? Right? They're not there to spread information.
They obviously don't have $500 for a web designer
Yeah, I mean, you're
or a landing
expecting
site. I mean, no, it's gotten better, but
you're expecting to be able to squeeze a turnip and get some water out of it. It's
well,
just not.
that was another. Gillibrand had to come out swinging like, "Where's the money?" Like that was another good moment for her. Like so.
Well, there's a
I
lot
just-
of people, pulling
No
a Tom
words.
shouting, "Show me the money."
Mm-hmm.
Show me the money. And when we get back from the break, we're going to start looking into the middle of the year. We have August coming up. UFOs over New York and LA. Nick Pope and his horrible hairdo talking about the RAF.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
Hey, Dave.
I'll leave
My
this
bat.
on. Entertain the crowd. We'll be right back.
Hey, Dave. My battery's toast. I gotta drop.
Oh, you sad boy.
I know.
Thank you, Olav.
No problem. Have a good night, everybody.
Good hanging out.
I
All.
love
Yeah. Bye. It was nice to talk to all of you. Okay. Bye.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas,
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Bye.
Saturnalia. I try to like say a lot of them. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Can help me out, space travelers. I hope everybody got their nice little Dirty Phil's Christmas greetings in the mail. That's always a special time of year. Little personalized notes from people. I'm still the nerd that hangs up all the Christmas cards. I'd also like to know if the NORAD Santa tracker is already operational. Is he just like sitting there at the North Pole?
All right. Coming on back here.
Did the chair move?
No, chair didn't move.
Guys aren't doing your job.
Magnolia, how you doing? All right.
Windy.
Yeah, Olav Phillips, what a good guy.
Yeah.
What a good guy. How you doing, Josh?
Doing good.
Good.
Having
Had
a
to
snack.
snag a sugar cookie. So
What's that? I coughed right when you were talking.
had to snag a sugar cookie. My kids made cookies tonight. So
Oh,
Darn.
Are you eating Santa cookies on the eve of Christmas Eve?
yes, I am.
Practice round. Practice round.
right. Got to make sure they're good enough. I don't want
Get
Santa
that?
to die
Yeah.
in my house.
Yeah. Sandra doesn't like no ugly cookies.
1 hour, 54 minutes before Santa starts prepping.
Nice.
I just asked. I needed to know if the NORAD Santa tracker was up and going. Aren't you Canadians in charge of that?
Yes, we are.
I thought so. Time honored tradition.
Barry.
Isn't that the truth?
Boom. There it is.
Uh-huh.
Hey.
Uh-huh. I love NORAD Santa Tracker.
Me too.
NORAD Santa Tracker, as of tomorrow morning when I wake up,
Mhm.
will not leave my television.
Nope.
Nope, will not. I will watch until he leaves tonight. It is my personal tradition. I don't care. I'm 51 years old. I still believe in Santa Claus. I don't care.
Mhm.
I don't care. It's the dream of it all. It really is the dream of it all.
It's the magic.
It is. It's
Yeah.
magical. I love it. All right, here we go, everybody. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Merry Christmas to all of our audience members out there. Remember, Santa is flying. He is not a drone. Do not shoot at him when you are looking into the sky and seeing something weird. All right? If you see a red light, that is Rudolph. It is not a government drone or a UFO. So please put the pointy sticks down and allow Santa to get his job done safely because he is coming tonight. Oh, I'm excited.
I know.
I'm pumped right up. My
Oh
name
my
is Dave
God.
Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio, and we are having a wonderful, wonderful time on our year in review of UFOs. And I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we have? Narishkite. Narishkite is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We have Tim James. We have Nicole Sakach. We have Josh Rutledge, the UFO Year in Review, and we are into the month of August now, where we take a look at some very intriguing things. What are we looking at? Nick Pope comes out discussing his experiences investigating UFOs. We also have reports over New York and LA. But the big one for me, and I hate even saying this,
Dun, dun, dun.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson comes out saying, gosh darn, there ain't no of these UAPs around. We got nothing at NASA. Nothing. After a $100,000 UFO report that was not investigated internally at all. Oh, Josh. Before I start ripping my beautiful beard hair out, Your thoughts on the NASA report?
Wow. I mean, I want to say that it's what I expected to see, honestly, because NASA is a bunch of scientists, and the scientific community does not want to give this story or this topic any type of credibility whatsoever. And so, I mean, I did not expect them to come forward and be like, "Oh yeah, check it out. Here's all the times that we cut away our cameras of the live feed of the International Space Station. Here's what we actually captured." And yeah, we don't have any explanation for this stuff. We're never, again, this is my skepticism comes in that we will ever have any type of official report from any government affiliated organization or government organization in general that says anything other than "we don't know." I just don't think we're ever going to have it.
I think the biggest disappointment for me on it, and I've been very passionate about it this year, probably overly passionate, Tim, is that there is all of this great evidence that you don't have to search for. It's right there on YouTube. It's right there on Google, from pilots from NASA, astronauts going back to Gemini, and recordings of audio right then and there. Darcy Weir did a great series of documentaries on NASA's cover-up. And it's all legit audio. It's all legit information. And here Bill Nelson is playing us for fools that they can't find anything. I thought it was horrific. If I was a government official in the United States, I would call him under oath to testify and say, lie to us.
Yeah.
Lie to us, because the information is right there, Tim.
No, you're right. And in a nutshell, the way that I look at NASA is, it's like, if you ever watched Hogan's Heroes, that old sitcom when you were a kid, somebody put Sergeant Schultz in charge of that place, because they don't see nothing. They don't see nothing. There's tunnels being dug, secret guys sneaking into camps. They don't see anything. It's right in front of them. I don't even know how they think that they're being legitimate. Like, I mean, they just, we can't find anything. And sure, you can just act like you're being honest and act like you're surprised by the questions. Yeah, they know nothing. And it's, I agree. They're not going to come up with anything tangible at all, even if it fell in their lap. And, you know, they'd still say, I don't know. You know?
And they already kind of demonstrated that, right? When they supposedly evaluated the Go Fast video and said it was actually only going 15 miles an hour or some ridiculous thing that they said. I mean, that was, I think, last year or a year before, but still, I mean, it's, yeah, they're never going to give any type of answer that gives any credibility to the topic.
The disappointing thing, Nicole, for me, was that they were concentrating a lot on the sightings of Navy and Air Force pilots. They weren't concentrating on what they knew. They weren't concentrating on the story of their X-15 pilot back in the 1960s, who was at 315,000 feet above the planet, who had a UFO right outside his cockpit flying. And he's talking on the radio, and you can actually hear the audio from this. And they're not discussing that. They're trying to break down the Nimitz incident, you know, and discredit Kevin Day, who said this thing dropped from 80,000 feet to 10 feet above sea level in 0.78 of a second. Okay. I mean, it was a mockery.
Indeed. And I think we kind of said all of our hesitations right from the gate when NASA and they announced that they were going to do this or look into it. And I think part of their panel coming forward and all of them taking turns and talking, like, you know, we did have to keep in mind that they were pulling public sector data. You know, they weren't allowed to access their classified material in their own work, but they still did a pretty crappy job of coalescing the publicly known data. And I'll kick it back to Greer and the Citizens Disclosure. We had a lot of NASA affiliated people come forward with that. I can't think of, I'm so bad, I'm mad that I can't remember her name, blonde-headed lady, and she was the one that actually scrubbed the images. And then
On a hair.
yes, and then there was the von Braun's secretary that also was that the same lady. But she gave some powerful testimony over the years that I think people disregard. But one of the other things that disappointed me is there were so many people that felt purposefully, I guess, put on that NASA panel. You know, we have probably the most recognized astronaut from the United States right now, and that's Kelly. And he brought up they were bringing up Balloon Gate still at that time, and he brought up the Bart Simpson balloon factor and made it a giggle factor, you know, added that sort of dig into this. But I will say, I think NASA's kind of finished strong with who has recently come out and kind of championed that they still need to look at this seriously and devote maybe even a special committee to it full time, and money, of course. So that hit pretty hard to end the year. But yeah, it started with that terrible panel.
But like you just hit on there, I think NASA realizes that there's a lot of money to be gained in researching this topic. And so whether or not they're going to give it any type of honest research or not, they want a seat at the table so that they can get some of that paycheck.
I'd like to add, though, too, NASA is slow to change. You know, we're talking about programs that used to last like 30, 40 years. And then slowly over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of them just totally shit canned in light of Elon Musk and SpaceX and, you know, that sort of new way of approaching space ventures. You know, we turned away from the shuttle program in lieu of launching space stations, I think, and satellites. So I think there's an ebb and tide when it comes to what chunk of that money NASA is still comfortable working in. But yeah, I think the tides are turning with that, especially when they're seeing other countries and this space economy sort of opening up internationally and becoming more affordable globally. So NASA has to change faster, I guess.
To stay relevant, right?
Yeah. And how better than a sexy hot topic like UFOs? Like, whether that's NASA or the drone program or unmanned aerial vehicles or emerging AI, like, I think that's all pushed and ufology is used for that.
Well, let's get to the other big story of August, and that was the release of Imminent, where Lou Elizondo's book came out. It was a PR nightmare for some of us, where we were promised interviews and never got them. You know, but Lou Elizondo did a giant world tour about his book Imminent. He became a New York Times bestseller. Everybody was happy, and he's going on all these television shows, from daytime morning shows that are very popular with millions of viewers to podcasts all over the world. You know, it was a real whirlwind for Lou Elizondo, who had been silent for at least a year and a half there, Tim.
Yeah.
And now he came out with Imminent, and it was an up and down roller coaster for him.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, some of the stuff, and I mean, I think we went on at not nauseam, but we went on for a long time about the book, and there was a lot of mixed reviews. I mean, I've read parts of it. I still haven't finished the book, and I mean, some of it's like, oh, okay, but I mean, there were so many people out there just ready to kick the legs out from under them, and it was for a while there for me doing a UFO report. It was really hard to get a grasp on stuff. And, all of a sudden people that knew him and worked with him and that's not what happened. And the other side of the aisle, so to speak, saying, oh yeah, no, that happened. I was there. And, yeah, it was huge. And I found that through all of it, credit to Lou, he just even keeled the whole way. I mean, whether you like Lou, whether you dislike Lou, doesn't matter. Credit where credit was due is he just kept marching forward, and the message was always the same. Everybody has their opinion. Everybody can, whatever you glean from this is, and if you can teach me something new, and that's great. I respect him for it, but on the other side of it too, there was some stuff in there. It was like, okay, there seemed to be overwhelming factors that you kind of went, did that happen or did that not happen? I found it kind of confusing at times. Let's put it that way.
One of the things that I found very confusing was shortly after the book came out, he had very highly praised certain people in that book, Eric Davis, Jay Stratton, and many others,
right.
And a bunch of them just threw him under the bus right after that book came out. Josh, what was your thoughts of Jay Stratton and Eric Davis basically calling him out, saying, you were never a part of this, man? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that Lou quoted in the book, I was, everybody was coming to me and say, he basically said Roswell happened. I said, no, he quoted that someone told him that Roswell happened. And so, I said, until the people who he quoted can come forward and corroborate his story, it's all hearsay. And so it's unfortunate that a lot of those people after the fact came forward and basically, discredit everything he had to say. So it's, but it's also, I mean, the thing that I have to question is that, did those people discredit him because they didn't want to be associated with the topic, and so the easiest way to do that is to discredit Lou in that regard, or did he some way kind of give away something that that they're working on their own book, right? And so it's like he let the cat out of the bag and took the wind out of their sail, and so they want to distance themselves from him and his story, only to come back later with their own book and their own story and basically tell the same story from a different perspective. Like Olav was saying before he had to go, but a lot of these guys are just very weird in the way they operate, in how they interact with each other. I mean, there's like a lot of trust issues, I guess, and just a way that half truths and whatever. So it's really weird that some of these guys don't have any problem going back on what they said a year ago, if it means that it solidifies their position on whatever the topic is that they happen to be talking about. So, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see. I've heard that Stratton is working on a book, so it'll be interesting to see when his book comes out, if there's anything in there that corroborates what Lou had to say.
Nicole, your thoughts?
Hal put off, I think, was the focus of Lou's love book to ufology. It seemed to all be springing from, I call it the house of put off. When you follow it all down, and when you graph it out of all the groups and who's been involved in them over the decades of ufology, you can, assign numbers, and put off is up here at like a level 17, and then like the next people close to him are like 11s and 12s. So he's had his fingers in everything for so long now that I think to backpedal a little bit, but since we're kind of smashing things together, we had this buckle up, I think, turn of phrase that came out of the formation of the UAPT Disclosure Fund, which kind of came out of nowhere. Was it a spinoff of Soul? We weren't sure. It seemed like a lot of things formed around the same time, like Quantum Frontier, and then all of a sudden Lou wasn't in Quantum Frontier anymore, and then UAP Disclosure Fund pops up. It's all Matt Ford, good trouble, stand for better. Let's lead the Disclosure Fund and get Lou's book out there. And so it was this sort of tidal wave, but then simultaneously everybody's like, something's coming, something else is coming. So we talked, is it still the films that are supposed to come? Is it the people in the films? Are they going to be more vocal like Jason Sands? Is it going to be more people to back him up? But then some interesting people snuck in there. Some interesting breakups happened. Like you said, there seemed to be like a Stratton Elizondo breakup where after Grush came forward in his hearing, they released a joint statement together. So that sort of seemed like a 180 in their bromance or partnerships or whatever's going on. But then another kind of breakup that I don't think anybody noticed was Stephen Greenstreet and Nick Pope broke up. And Nick Pope joined the Ancient Aliens tour, which I thought was interesting because, yeah, he was sort of new to that sort of disclosure that's been happening for the last 20 years via the ancient astronaut theorists. And they're tried and true for me at this point. Like, they've stood the test of time. They're just cranking it out solidly. Georgie Tsoukalos gets to laugh. He's the fight that happened in the Twitterverse. They were like, oh, they just make up stuff. And then he listed like 40 PhDs and doctors and scientists that have been involved with the show over, I think, the 22 years now. So that's impressive. And yeah, I forgot where I was going with that because I didn't really want to talk about imminent.
Ancient astronaut theorists agree.
Well, honestly, I'm confused by imminent. I think he borrowed from a lot of people and didn't give really direct citations to where he got information. And that might be where it's coming back to bite him in the butt with people like Stratton, because that kind of unfolded like this clearer definition between what OSAP and ATIP was and those roles defined within a little bit. Yeah, so I think maybe that's the lesson to be learned from imminent, is that ufology at large is like elephants. We don't forget anything, especially in the digitized world. Like, it's so easy to click back and see the progression of how people interact and when they backpedal. So that imminent was the beginning of a lot of, I think, landmines and backpedaling for Lou Elizondo. Like, it came out in some of his lectures or presentations that he'd given. Like, some of his information was just bad. And yeah, he hadn't vetted his sources. And I think the talks about
Are you talking about the ULP, the unidentified lighting phenomena?
The chandelier.
Yes, the chandelier that appeared on Thursday.
Since we are into technical terms here, like NHI, UAP,
Yep.
we'd prefer if we called it what it is, a ULP.
But I've identified it, Dave.
Right, or unidentified reflective object. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
A URO, very
A
nice.
URO. There we go.
URO.
I see
Oh
another-
my goodness. But not just that one. There's a few other ones too. And it was just kind of like, well, I know not to trust that guy anymore. And it's like, really? So even to not talk about the book specifically, but bringing up orbs in your house, but then yet you don't have And maybe he does, and he just didn't say he does, but I don't know. And I formed the orbology group, or the Orbis. Like, Grant and I talked to so many. We have all these jokes about orbs and all this stuff. Like, I don't know anybody that encounters these things in their house that doesn't go flipping bonkers about trying to catch them on camera. Like, hands down. So to
When we return on Spaced Out Radio, September, drones, elections, and congressional hearings.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
We're going to have to burn through the next 4 months, people.
No
We
doubt.
got 30
I'm
minutes.
sorry, we all
30
have to
minutes to
talk
get through 4
faster.
months. And like all the activity for the year is like the last 4 months of the year.
Right?
Now there's not too much to talk about with drones and stuff.
Hey, we might have to do overtime.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well,
we
we'll
might
do
have to go.
Our radio audience, we got to burn through the next 4 months. Oh, I have to tell you guys something.
Tell us.
This is actually kind of creepy.
Mm-mm.
So Sunday's a big day for sports around here, especially when Colby doesn't have school in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. And he's off for break. So him and I watched the football highlights. We watched the NHL highlights last night. And it's about 11:30. And I said, son, I'm going to bed. You need to go to bed too. Okay, Daddy. So I'm getting ready for bed, and I'm in my room and just about to crawl into bed, and I hear him get up, go to the bathroom while I'm, getting changed into my pajamas. And all of a sudden he walks into my room. He goes, Dad. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I just saw a man wearing a white striped shirt walk by the bathroom door.
Oh, Beetlejuice.
I'm like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, he goes, yeah, it was, he goes, he was walking towards the kitchen, and I watched him walk in the mirror because he was looking in the mirror, brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
And he watched him walk down the hallway.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like he was coming from my room in order to go down the hallway to the kitchen. And he said he was wearing a white shirt with stripes on it.
Huh.
Little stripes on it.
Interesting.
How does he do with, that kind of stuff? Like, did you have any problems with him going to bed or anything?
Nope. I said,
Okay.
don't worry about him. I said, you don't need to worry about him. He's okay. You can go to bed. Well, about 2:00 in the morning, we had a visitor in our bed for the rest of the night. Right?
Were the stripes horizontal or vertical?
Vertical.
Okay. So
So
we're
he
not
was-
talking like old timey prison jail chain gang cartoony.
He knew that vertical stripes is thinning, and so he wore vertical striped shirts. That's
right. UFO alien invasion. Welcome to SOR chat. Yeah, it was. So he didn't talk about it today, which he's seen a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like 2 years ago, he was in the forest with us when we had the Bigfoot encounter, and he saw the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So he's pretty tapped in. He just doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, even when we've been out and it's when we've been out to the Bigfoot spot and he's been out there with us and stuff, he farts around like any young kid. But then he tunes in on something, and it's like your dog. It's like you just ding. It's like, what's going on, man?
Oh yeah, he is very in tune.
Mm-hmm.
Very in tune.
I had something happen in my house 3 days ago.
Yeah, what happened?
I was fixing my wife a water bottle. She had a doctor's appointment like 6 o'clock in the morning. She had to leave the house. I was fixing her some water, and I had a straw, like a real long straw, was laying on the counter, and I went to pick it down to stir the drink mixture into her water, and it was gone. And we looked everywhere for it, like we could not find it anywhere. So, like, it went on the floor, nothing. So I went and got a different straw and started up and got it all ready. And I looked down at my dog, and laying on the floor next to her is the original straw. So I'm like, there, like I pick it up, I'm like, here it is, and I throw it in the sink because I'm mad. It's like, here it is, and I throw it in the sink. She goes to a doctor's appointment. My kids get up, and I'm telling them the story, and the straw is laying on the counter in the original spot that I thought that I had placed the straw when I was fixing the water bottle. The straw that I threw in the sink was laying on the counter in the original spot.
Oh, weird. Weird.
I mean, we got fairies or something. Stuff goes missing all the time.
I call that, and I learned this from Grant. I think it's more in the apport phenomenon category. And then my experiencer side, because this stuff tends to happen, like stuff will disappear and then reappear. Like, I get just really mad, and I'm like, fucking put it back, like wherever it is, just make it appear again. I'll quit looking, and then it's just gonna be exactly where I thought it was.
Hold
and
on.
it's like, sure enough.
Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're going to get right into it with our panel. My name is Dave Scott. We got Nicole Sakach, Josh Rutledge, Tim James here. We're going to get into the month of September in our 2024 year in review. Started off congressional hearings, Arrow hearings, an election, which leading up to it, Donald Trump's team was speaking very much about UFOs through the entire thing. And then the drones started. Josh, let's kick things off with you.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the last 4 months of the year have certainly been a lot, and I'm hoping that it continues into next year, because I'm certainly feeling like there is, where the snowball is starting to roll faster. Maybe we're picking up speed, and so yeah, all the stuff that happened, the congressional hearings that we heard. Even though some of the presenters at the congressional hearing was not, I don't know that they really necessarily helped the conversation. But I was, again, from a perspective of keeping it in the public eye, just keeping that awareness, I think that it was important that it happened. The Arrow report was the same thing we're going to continue to get. If we ever expect anything different from the Arrow report, we haven't learned our lesson. I would rather be surprised when they give us something more than to expect them to ever do anything otherwise. So, and then the last little piece is just the drone stuff. I think the explanation been given so far is that they're private drones or whatever, but maybe maybe the drones were just a distraction from the actual things that were in the sky at that time, so they could just wave it off as, oh, that's just a drone, as opposed to, yes, there's a glowing orb that is occupying the space above Newark Airport or whatever the case may be. So yeah,
it's very interesting. Tim, your thoughts?
Well, I would say definitely the congressional hearings. I found that it was, again, ball was rolling, and I like the term used, snowball, it's starting to roll quicker. What I think impressed me most about that is whether scripted or whether not scripted or however it worked. I think the questions that were asked at the hearing were much more, intelligent than what we've heard. Well, what I've heard in the past from from anybody that's asked. They seem to be a little bit more thought provoked and whatever. And like I say, scripted, not scripted, doesn't matter. I thought that was a good point, or a high point of it. The drone thing, I know that we've beaten it to death on this show, but I mean, it's ever changing. And like we said from the beginning, they're going to back themselves in the corner, and they have. So yeah, that's been interesting too. I think that, again, people are looking to the skies. There's more going on. And in saying that, to kind of put that into perspective, I was thinking about it earlier. I remember the days when you used to walk into the doctor's office and you would be lucky. You'd find that magazine with a report about UFOs or something. Or you'd be, it was always on the newsstand, and it was one of those, schmarmy tabloids that was on the shelf, UFO abduction. But I've noticed with this too, probably within the last year, more so mainstream, Popular Mechanics has doing huge articles on it. So again, this year, and then especially this last 4 months, the ball has really been rolling.
And, we do have to move on, but I do want to say something, Nicole, on this part. People like Nancy Mace, Anna Paulina Luna going into the congressional hearings, they asked some tough pointed questions. And both of them came out absolutely ragdolling Lou Elizondo, Carl Nell, or was it Carl Nell?
What's his?
No.
Gaudet and Schellenberger.
Schellenberg and Happy Gilmore there
From NASA.
In regards to, Mike Gold or whatever his name was for NASA, who had the audacity to beg for money while he was there. Like how? You're a smart man. You don't get to that position without being a smart man. How do you have your biggest brain fart of your career at a congressional hearing? I don't get it. But
you have a congressional tip jar sitting on the table in front of him,
Yeah. I mean,
he was just happy to be there.
But what they said, Nicole, what Luna and Mace both said at separate times, or they were highly disappointed in the fact that they didn't feel any of the tough questions were answered. They didn't get the answers they wanted. They weren't there to. I think it was Luna who went off saying, this isn't about selling a book or gaining funding. Let's get to the point here. And none of that happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if we stretch our minds back to Grush's hearing and the answers of I can only answer that in a skiff, and then that was with like Luna and Burchett, and I think AOC was throwing in on that, and Getz, and now Getz is out of the equation. But to flash forward, they came out of that like, let's get him in a skiff now. They were showing up at bases. They were getting told they didn't have access. Burchett was like, let's do more hearings in my front yard. So, and Luna stayed consistent throughout all of it, her interest. So by the time we got to these hearings in this setting and these witnesses, it was like you could see it on Mace's face. You could see it on Luna's face. Every time they got told to read Lou's book, it was just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can't read women's facial gestures like other women can or something like that. And I think they backed it up with their statements following. Askapol did a really good job of, I'm sure he's running behind them as they're walking across the plaza somehow or shuffling off to another meeting, and he's shoving a microphone in their face. And they luckily answer him. So, and I think they're being honest. They had a chance to hear it in a public setting like we've all wanted. They got asked the weird, hard questions that we all hear about. I was really floored when Luna asked the question about the consciousness connection to crafts. And then it was like Lou, there was crickets, and he tried to field it to Gaudet or vice versa or something. And that was just a shit show, to be nice.
Well, you know what? The other thing about it too that I will say is they also stated about, you know, the disappointment that I think for the public in the UFO community, we'd waited 2 years for Lou Elizondo to sit on that panel,
What
and he provided "Read My Book."
Mhm.
what was the best part of it? It was they talking about immaculate constellation and
Yes.
come at me, bro. Like you're not supposed to mention the name. Like
Yeah.
come at the come at me, bro from Mace was great. Cause yeah, I think we needed that little like moment, like we're not afraid to dig for this information. But I totally forgot, you guys, we didn't bring up Blue Kona with Arrow. Like that was significant.
Well, we're gonna move into October here with more Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick after he's left the party, saying once again there was no evidence, no nothing to see here. I know we already talked about this, but this is a man who said that none of this exists, and then comes out and states, "I'm going to start my own UFO crash retrieval team. Who's with me? Dang burn it, who's with me?" Okay, and if he goes from Chief Wiggum to literally Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind within months. Josh, tell me I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he complete 180, which, you know, again, it kind of feels to me like it was this is what we need you to say versus how he felt about the situation. You know, again, what was the famous line from the Condon report where, you know, I'm not supposed to come to that conclusion until, you know, so many weeks into the project, right? So it was it really, again, felt like you have to say these things when you deliver your report, even though you may not necessarily agree with them. And then, like you said, now he's like, you know, this his strings have been cut, so to speak, and so he's nobody's puppet anymore, and he can do whatever he wants to do. I feel like, though, that he's probably holding on to some really good factual information that would be beneficial to get out of him some way, you know, and like a whistleblower, he could become his own whistleblower or something. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of,
He kind of was, I think, being his own whistleblower. Like he was posting to Medium as himself, I think is where he started sharing this, and was kind of in that spirit of maybe controlling your own narrative. He was like, fork this. Like my family's been harassed. I've been harassed publicly, privately, you know, like ran the gamut of how terrible people can be treated by our community and in our community. And then that was another laughable Lou moment where he came out and was like, come on, guys, everybody be nice to Kirkpatrick. I mean, he can incite the Twitterverse to rage hate on strangers with like the flick of his like wrist, or just one word to his wolf pack, you know?
Yeah.
So for him to start calling for everybody to get along and everybody's being harassed, even him, and, you know, that felt like it was too little too late, you know, to come together after he said ufology must die, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
it's also, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
October, the other big thing of October was the drones really started taking off. We can't be remiss going, and this will take us right into November as well. The drone situation. It just seemed to get more and more ridiculous, more and more sightings, more and more whatever it may be. There was everything from this is an alien invasion to this is you know, the U.S. Postal Service delivering packages, you know, because you forgot to extend your car's warranty, right? I mean, there was a little bit of everything that was going on, and in the end, you know, we see that there might be something serious going on with this regarding missing nuclear materials. Nicole, let's start with you on this one.
I want to preface that I think drone madness is just like balloon gate. And I think this is a time where everybody in our community should look towards people that have literally thousands of hours logged with sky watching and using identification apps like Flight Tracker or Heavens Above, or just these little nothing apps that are free to where you can point them at the sky and identify aircraft or even light configurations or Venus constellations, Starlink. You know, this is where I will fall back to people's opinions that look at video over and over again or skywatch night after night after night. Because they will see these oddities, they'll be able to identify blimps at night or rattan long easies and know that the differences between different drones, whether they're delivery drones or a toy drone or a helicopter. Like, some of this is just out of control. And I don't know, there's even people like Ross Coulthard like speaking up saying he's getting reports. And it's like, okay, does Ross take like case reports now, like a hotline of like who's calling in? And I think it's a hyped thing. So it has media attention. It's not explained. And I think it's a tell when they're saying it's not our military. Because, okay, it's not our military, it's not a foreign adversary, or we'd be reacting differently. So that leaves one option to me. Northrop, Raytheon, Lockheed, like some sort of contractor where it's not necessarily our military yet. So when it comes into drones searching for nuclear waste or like missing nuclear things or a dirty bomb or something like that, we have emergency management systems in place for that, and teams and people in every state that track that sort of things and respond to it. So contact further down your local law enforcement than your local Chief Wiggum, and maybe you could get an explanation. Because, yeah, this just all seems like UFO community madness gone wild. And I think it's fed by the public, like it's mass hysteria. Honestly, I know there's a lot of people saying that in the community because it's just becoming more and more, but the data isn't getting better. There's hasn't been one like video backup of this was the actual drone. There has been some arrests, which I think that's like because of all the focused attention. But no, please stop talking about drones. I don't want to start 2025 in drone dumbness.
Tim, your thoughts on the drone situation?
And I agree. I think that there's a lot of hype. I didn't think that there was anything nefarious or whatever. I think my brain and we discussed it at length. I think we thought it was testing, and I agree with Nicole. Testing from contractors, and they were up there. The thing that bothered me about it the most, or does bother me, is that the government pretends. For example, they don't know what's going on, and they allow the public to speculate, and they allow these people to get wound up. These are their citizens, and I've said this before, right? These are their citizens, and you're allowing them to build on because they have nothing tangible to go on, and the government seems to be okay with telling everybody, don't worry about it, it's nothing. Okay, then what is it that we're not supposed to be worrying about here? Just let us know so that we're not all speculating and causing mass, hysteria, so to speak. But they still haven't done that. And yeah, but like I say, I don't think it's anything UFO, that's for sure.
No, I don't think it's anything UFO as well. Let's get to December here. What are we going to talk about in December? Drones.
What?
Drones.
Oh, wow.
What? More drones?
And Tim Burchett saying, shoot them. Shoot at them. Shoot the drones.
But here's the interesting part about that, guys, is there has been a stand down order on shooting these things down.
Oh, yeah.
So now the
There-
FEC is saying shoot him down. Tim Burchett wants him shot down.
Mhm.
Trump says shoot him down.
Mhm.
Okay. We don't know. We don't know. And that's part of the big thing. Vigilantes are trying to shoot them down.
Oh,
they
yeah.
they forget physics. Okay, that those bullets come down.
Yep.
It's not a good situation when where the FBI and the local state officials have to put out press releases stating please don't point laser pointers at them
Mhm.
or fire bullets at them, because people were shooting at anything.
Yeah.
It didn't matter whether it was a helicopter, a drone, an orb, or an airliner for that matter. It was getting ridiculous,
Mhm.
Tim.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's just it, right? Don't shoot at them. Don't. It's, yeah, we've discussed that to death too. And yeah, it's just goofy. I mean, there's a standout on shooting them down. Okay. And I think Science Bob nailed it. I think the first time we actually discussed that and Science Bob even said there's a reason that they're not shooting them down. What's in them? What are you shooting down?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, there may be nothing. It could be just, a drone, right? But if it is something and they're testing and they're carrying it, you don't know what's falling into a civilian area. You don't. And so, there's that thing too. And, that's obviously the military is not worried about it because it's not an issue, right? Don't worry about it. So you guys don't need to shoot it down because we're actually testing stuff, right? Yeah. I'm droned out, my friends.
Well, and at a minimum, it's got a lithium ion battery in it, right? We know what those things do, right? When they get too hot or they get agitated or whatever the case could be, let's shoot those out of the sky. I'm sure it'll go well. But yeah, I mean, it's
or anything.
No.
I think maybe this speaks to a little bit of maybe city dwellers versus country dwellers, because they're okay. And you can maybe look at it from this point of view. So, we're not talking about a military installation that, a predator drone is, coming in at top speeds and like attacking an area, doing their worst and then flying off. Like, these seem to be very, we're not showing the observables that we've been crammed down our throats. Like, they're not just poofing out of existence. When some of them get captured during the day, like orbs will just disappear. These things that I've seen that they're saying are UFOs, they don't have that distortion field or that sphere of influence around it or that weird wobbly. So,
what a great panel. We're going to see what happens in 2025. So we say goodnight to Tim, Nicole, and Josh. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night.
Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Nicole's the only one I let do that.
I know. I saw that.
Dude, I almost forgot too. I was like, oh, it's time for the wheel. And I was like, hey, wait, I'm actually can do it.
Yes. Very impressive one, by the way, tonight. You actually nailed it.
Yep.
Let's give her a hand for that, shall we?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're owning the night.
Uh-huh. We is
You know,
owning-
Dave has started to call me on his drive to work because he knows there's a better chance that I'm awake these days. So then when we get off the phone, I'm always like, own the day.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's truth. That's truth. And how many times does she pick up in the morning? Maybe once a week. She's like, fuck you, Dave. I'm out of here.
You, Dave.
Fuck you, Dave.
Oh.
Your morning, what, it doesn't even take you that long to drive to work, and you fill it in with your morning kappa, double kappa chino, and I don't know, something else delicious that I can ever have. And yeah, I'm usually at work. I'm like, I'll call you back.
Yep. Sweet Robbie G has posted archive shows for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So you guys will have something to listen to. Thank you, Sweets, for taking care of that. This is why his chin hair is perfect. Because he pulls off moves just like that. Uh-huh. Hey, Nicole, I only have to edit twice.
I know. I said shit show.
Yeah, it was shit show and some
Shit.
and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
that
nice.
kind of night, honestly.
Uh-huh.
This year in review was kind of cathartic, honestly. I needed to get some of this like bah humbugness out of me. So being able to like dump on some aspects of ufology a little bit, or yeah, that was good. I feel good.
Excellent.
So what do we think for 2025? What do we think here? Are we going places? We not going places?
Well, I think we're due to see stuff start coming out of the water like crazy.
Yeah.
Let's
there's
do
a,
something different.
there's a live feed from like a beach in New Jersey that you can sit on there and watch all the time. Watch see if anything comes out of the ocean. Yeah.
I saw that.
And see, that's something I think I predicted last year this time, where I was like, we're coming off balloons. The next wave's going to be stupid drones. And then they're going to cram it all underwater because that's where we can't boots on the ground.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So
Submarines.
it's still,
Especially the yellow ones.
So then
I-
we're
you
gonna get USO whistleblowers next.
we're starting to already with Gaudet, but I mean, I think people were hopeful they'd get their own submersibles, and then that one like imploded and smithereens people. So, and then Dave, of course, was like, Megalodon is still around, and that's going to eat all ufologists. So,
Megalodon is still around.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Like the
yeah.
okay.
Woo Poo, how are you? Cody Mongol, good to see you. I don't know what we're gonna do. I just hope that I mean, you get all of these people in there with the insiders saying 2025 is going to be the big year. It's going to happen. This is the year it happens. Well, that was 2024, 2023, 2022. So,
well, it is a transition of, power year with a new administration coming in. So that will always like shake things up. Like, we did close out, we just finalized. I don't even know what really survived or if anything was really added to the NDAA for this year. It sounds like, everybody's crying that Elon Musk was like, just get rid of everything.
when in doubt, shout it out.
That's
yeah.
Ooh.
Well, it's really interesting too. Regardless of what your religious beliefs are, there's there's certainly a common thread between the people who think that like we're living in end times and the people who looked at every day, every year, it's disclosure time. Like there's some commonality there to constantly thinking that we're on the threshold of some revolutionary change in the nature of our reality, right?
Mm.
Sorry, I probably got too psychological at 1
No,
o'clock in the morning.
I think if there's anything like that to come in 2025, it'll be this artificial intelligence tie-in, and just think we might see that hitting hard with
I
how
think,
it'll be applicable to our community. Yeah.
and to add to what you're saying, I think 2025, 2026, we are going to see the remix of experiences coming out because nobody's going to be able to trust
That's right.
AI and the videos anymore.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to tell what is real, what is fake. We're right in the run. You think about it. We're in the movie The Running Man right now.
Oh, God.
Remember when they made up
Yeah.
all that footage about Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
You know, when he was the helicopter pilot and he was knocking people out because he wouldn't take out the civilians.
Yeah.
That's literally where we are in video technology now, and AI and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary to think, but we're not going to be able to trust any video anymore.
Well, no, and I think we discussed that a few times too on the show, is that we'll probably end up going back to the way it used to be. It'll be the boots on the ground again, right? Like the old school way, the old dig deep and investigate instead of trusting your Twitters and Twitches and Reddits and whatever else is out there, because you're going to have to get back down to basics, I think, to get the truth out of, or
well, that's
truth.
That's actually one of my biggest complaints about all of this drone stuff is that you've got these people who are relatively reputable people in the UFO community who are just blindly sharing and reposting things that haven't been verified or validated. And so when you throw your name onto a video, you better be certain that, hey, I'm reposting this because I've done some sort of analysis to say that this is legitimate, and it's not just a stack of airplanes coming in to land at the airport that don't look like they're moving because they're flying directly at you. That there's an effort that's being put into it. So that's I think the biggest problem that I see is that everybody is excited, right, about what these drones are and what they could mean. People in the community, out of the community, whatever the case may be, but there's no fact checking. It's the videos and the photos and things are being shared too fast and spread too wide, and no one's really doing any type of analysis to say this is a drone, or like you said, Nicole, like this is an airplane and here it is on Flight Radar 24, right? There's none of that's happening because it's all moving too fast.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah. I think all of that is correct with like the fears of how artificial intelligence could maybe dupe or hoax. But I think the benefits of being able to coalesce data and being able to do that more in real time, I think will be beneficial. But I was really talking about AI like possibly becoming sentient and like gaining that sort of elevated status in the world at large. I think big things are coming out of like OpenAI, for instance, and just to be able to engage with artificial intelligence on that level. I think that's, everybody says we're in times or they're dooms, doom and gloom. Like that's where I'm a futurist. I'm like, no, man, this is where I get my Rosie bot that's going to like push the button and cook and clean and the pill's going to pop up. And or it's even like Interstellar where, these true, AI craft will be assisting astronauts explore or do experiments and, things along that level where they can, I'll revert back to even Star Trek, how they can talk to their computer in their craft, on the Enterprise, or this latest rendition with Zora,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. So
Hold on, Nicole. I have to find your
it's right now, and that's Kelly. And he brought up they were bringing up Balloon Gate still at that time, and he brought up the Bart Simpson balloon factor and made it a giggle factor, added that sort of dig into this. But I will say, I think NASA's kind of finished strong with who has recently come out and kind of championed that they still need to look at this seriously and devote maybe even a special committee to it full time, and money, of course. So that hit pretty hard to end the year. But it started with that terrible panel.
They're like, they want to see.
NASA is perfect. NASA is slow to change. We're talking about programs that used to last like 30, 40 years. And then slowly over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of them just totally shit canned in light of Elon Musk approaching like 30, 40 years. And then slowly over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of them just totally shit canned. Programs that use shit canned. I have to argue the S word. I don't even think it qualifies as a cuss word or curse word. What if I was Australian and I was saying it was like gun canned? A lot of them just totally canned in light of Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Unfortunately, and I agree with you.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the FCC and the CRTC don't agree.
And George Carlin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it isn't my call.
They're like NASA. They're slow to change too.
They need to shit can stuff. Is that what you're saying?
They need to shit can their cuss word list.
Oh, I hear you.
Right,
I hear you.
Here.
Huh?
I gotta get out of here.
Why?
Oh,
I'm just proud. I demoted my cussing down. That I'm not at the F-bomb level anymore.
I'll be right back. I just gonna walk Tim out.
All right. Bye, Tim.
Yeah.
Bye, Tim.
Let me get him off the screen here, for God's sake. Yeah. One second, guys. Oh, you guys chat away. I'll be right back.
All right.
They're gonna smooch under the mistletoe. Then Tim can drive home.
What I was going to say about your comment around AI sentience is I think it's really interesting because I think it would cause us as a people to start to question how we define sentience. Because, if we had artificial sentience in place or, as established or whatever. So, how we define ourselves as like the apex intelligent, life on the planet. We know that there are other intelligent lives, dolphins and other things that use tools and all that kind of stuff. So it really, if we get to the point where AI is considered sentient, I think it would cause us to have to reevaluate, our dolphin sentient, our whale sentient, etc., the octopi, so on and so forth. So.
Oh, I agree with that, and it'll almost be like a new hierarchy, I believe, with how we connect to different things. And I don't know, I think it follows that threat narrative too, with what we hear, like Terminator talk, or we have to really watch how we program things, but I think limitedly, that's almost where we have to look at developing this stuff, just like it is a biological life form. It will probably go through a nature versus nurture sort of dynamic at play. So I don't know. I'm excited about those sort of possibilities. I mean, we're talking about it with our field. I think we try to reinvent the wheel so many times. Like Grant says over and over again, like, okay, we're past the point where we're saying these things are real or not real. We've already said they're real. So move past that, past the better sensors, better data, better this to explain. It's always going to be explained down to maybe that 5%, 3% that's remaining unknown. So go for the juice.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I'm a believer in the fact that I don't think that any of this stuff exists to be defined. I think it exists
Yeah.
so that we can really think about how we define ourselves.
I
And
think
so,
that's where AI might even help us
yeah,
do that. Sometimes you have to look to other things to discover what you're not, to
yeah,
define what you are, sort of thing. And I think that could be a sort of balance, and to just sort of wield that capability across all, I guess, areas of interest with this, whether it is truly spiritual or a combination of physical and non-physical, or dimensional aspects, or messing with our concepts of space-time, or it even ties into like the holographic universe or
mhm.
simulation theories. So I just think that's an interesting avenue to explore. I want the tech, I want to move forward in, this sort of
Yeah.
cohesive way.
I mean, I think that our the the way we anthropomorphize. I think it's a mispronunciation of the word, but the way that we humanize, let's say, everything that we encounter, we assume that if we create AI in our image, it's going to do the horrible, nasty things that we do, right? But I mean, I think that maybe there's a element of caution in how you approach that stuff, but there's also, I think, an element of discovery. And that's, you brought up Star Trek. Well, I'm a big Trekkie, and so Star Trek, I think, is all about kind of taking those risks for what is the undiscovered country. I just watched that the other day, the future, and looking for what are those things that are on the next frontier that are waiting to be discovered. No remarkable discovery could have ever been made if people weren't willing to take the risk to get there. So
Absolutely. I think maybe that's where we've lost our humanity a little bit, and we're comfortable. It's like we're not in that age of risk anymore. But I do
yeah,
think space is that final frontier of risk.
Okay,
So,
1 second. I just got to find Nicole's second swear word here.
yes.
I think it was Luna who
Hearing and
here, and none of that happened.
well,
like
yeah.
it.
I mean, I think if
Yeah.
we stretch our minds back to Crush's hearing and the answers of I can only answer that in a skiff, and then that was with like Luna and Burchett, and I think AOC was throwing in on that, and Getz, and now Getz is out of the equation. But to flash forward, they came out of that like, let's get him in a skiff now. They were showing up at bases. They were getting told they didn't have access. Burchett was like, let's do more hearings in my front yard. So, and Luna stayed consistent throughout all of it, her interest. So by the time we got to these hearings in this setting and these witnesses, yeah, it was like you could see it on Mesa's face. You could see it on Luna's face. Every time they got told to read Blue's book, it was just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can't read women's facial gestures like other women can, or something like that. But, and I think they backed it up with their statements following. Askapol did a really good job of, I'm sure he's running behind them as they're walking across the plaza somehow, or shuffling off to another meeting, and he's shoving a microphone in their face. And they luckily answer him. So, and I think they're being honest. They had a chance to hear it in a public setting like we've all wanted. They got asked the weird, hard questions that we all hear about. I was really floored when Luna asked the question about the consciousness connection to crafts. And then it was like Lou, there was crickets, and he tried to field it to Gaudet or vice versa or something, and that was just shit show, to be nice. There was crickets, and he tried to field it to Galpin, and that was just a shit show. I'm so honest, I can't help it. Show, to be nice.
There we go. All right, you guys.
That was such a show.
Yeah.
He really did. They all like looked at each other like, huh. And she went down the line. Lou? She had said his first name like they're that close. Like, Lou? Really? Come on, bro. You're not going to say anything? And he didn't.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying.
Mm.
You know, and then Josh's hero, Mike Gold, for $1 a day, you could support NASA.
Was that his name? I feel like that's not his name. Is it his name?
It is his name, yeah.
Yeah. There's another Gold guy in ufology. Am I getting it? I'm getting their first names mixed up, I think. Is there a Nick Gold too?
Wasn't there like a Gold guy that was infomercial guy?
Probably, but I'm thinking he's got a disclosure fund thing going on as well. I thought, or advocacy group. Nick Gold. So who's the NASA guy? What's his name?
Mike Gold.
Mike. Gotcha. Did you guys see this latest kind of UAP task force guy that has come forward? I guess on some sort of Green Beret guy talk, former military chat show, and his name is Kurt Michel. It's spelled really funny. KURTTMYCHALL. And yeah, he was pretty much saying he worked for the task force and reviewed a bunch of stuff, but it's nothing, and that it's like how when they lay the groundwork to run a psyop and manipulate information.
Right.
And granted, he didn't speak the whole podcast about this topic. He literally brought it up in maybe like 45 seconds to a minute and a half. It's just like a blurb for him to talk about. And I was like, whoa, who's this guy? Where did he come from? So that's just been within the last week or 4 days.
I have not seen that one. I'm trying to Google it, but nothing's coming up for me.
Reddit is where I found anybody saying anything about it, but where is it? Was sent to me. See where.
I saw one, Dave, I sent this to you, I think, like earlier in the week. It was on the Daily Mail, Herrera or something like that.
Yeah, Michael Herrera.
Yeah. And supposedly they saw people loading weapons onto a UFO in 2009 and were told to shut the F up. Don't tell anybody.
That's nice. Trying to find my something here. I apologize.
I had to go off camera while I ate another cookie. I'm sorry. Because if you can't eat cookies at 1:30 in the morning, when can you eat them?
Well, right. Right? What do you do? What do you do? You got to do it.
You got it. You got to.
You have to.
That's what Santa's going to eat them. I have, in order for it to be a legitimate test, I have to eat them in the middle of the night.
Right?
For science, Dave. For science.
Hey, it's what you have to do. It's what you have to do. Wow. My StreamYard doubled in price.
Wow. Like I have had StreamYard in the past. I use Zoom because I record all my shows, but
Yeah.
For live, I don't think there's anybody. I mean, other than like OBS, there's not a lot of other options.
There is Riverside. Riverside's like, so StreamYard jumped their price by from about $44 Canadian up to $88. And Riverside is at like $24 a month.
Wow.
Holy cow. That's interesting. Interesting. Wow, we're gonna have to. Sweet Robbie G, if you're here, you're gonna have to do some homework for us, man. Wow, that's heavy.
There's that word again.
Okay, so the post that I saw was on X, and when I first came across it, it was from a user called the Average Chris. And it said, on the Anti-Hero podcast, Kurt Michel, a retired Special Forces Green Beret, reveals that he worked for the UAP task force. Kurt revealed that the UAPTF was mostly just a, quote, side thing. It's not like it's a full-time job, end quote. He goes on to say that the, quote, videos mean absolutely nothing. I'm just going to tell you right now that the stuff you see, the way it was released, everything looked like it was being developed as a hip pocket. If we ever need to unite people or instill fear in people, it was towards that, end quote. Kurt continues on to say that, quote, there was no indicator of any alien life from what I saw from my perspective. What I did see was a lot of prep for a tool for manipulation, end quote. And just some of this guy's creds that they list. His background is he's a retired chief warrant officer. He's a Green Beret, served in the 7th, 11th, and 20th Special Forces Group, served with General Mulholland, former associate director of the military affairs at the CIA. Says he worked in clandestine services. He was UAPTF from 2001 to 2023. And he provided all his background intel vetting services to UAPTF when he contributed. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think some of the chatter from Reddit is that some people are saying they've never heard of him or heard of his name, but it's honestly a very strange name, and I've wondered if it's an alias. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe we'll hear more. I know like people like Chris Bartell have been tagged to maybe look into this. I know people are asking like Sarah Gam and probably Jay Stratton and things like that. So, but Dave, doesn't that sound like somebody else we know that kind of says, hey, you guys want it to be this, but it's really that?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed he used the term hip pocket. So I wanted to dig on that sort of terminology and see what it's like used for slang or used as slang for.
Always talking in code. That's what I've noticed. They're always talking in code.
I mean, if it's a valid name, I mean, I'm sure somebody could put in a FOIA for his military service,
Right.
confirmation. So
The spelling of his last name is highly, highly, highly unusual.
you spell it for
And
me again?
Mychall. You can find it with one L, but two L's is even more. And like I was inquiring about this, and then somebody sent me like some ancestry.com stuff. So, and then Kurt, who spells Kurt with two T's? Kurtt. That's just strange. I don't know any Kurt with an extra T, but that allegedly is, from what I looked up, Turkish for wolf.
That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's like no Google presence yet for that
No.
spelling.
Nope. I couldn't find anything on Google except the little Reddit hit up, and that was pulling it from the YouTube podcast, and that was on the Anti-Hero podcast. I shared it with Dave to his signal so he can pass it on to you.
Okay.
Are you on X?
No.
Then I won't send you the average guy
I mean,
or
I have
average
an account,
Chris.
but I don't go on there. It got too toxic for me.
Right. It's good to lurk.
Yeah, like I lurk on Reddit. Like I
That's-
rarely post or comment, but I read stuff.
Reddit and LinkedIn are like my favorite places for social media ufology right now.
There's a lot of stuff on the TikTok, especially with drone footage and stuff.
I don't TikTok or Instagram.
I try not to.
Honestly, if I wasn't, trying to advertise or push my YouTube channel, I don't know that I would go on social media hardly at all. So,
Oh, if I didn't have this show, I wouldn't be on social media.
does YouTube count as social media?
I think it does.
Yeah.
If you do the chat room side of it, like our space travelers.
Yeah. Like I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, woodworking videos and car rebuild videos and stuff like that.
Well, everybody, it is
Yep.
that time of the night to say thank you to all of you for coming on in. Head on over to the noradsanta.org or the NORAD YouTube channel, and you can watch Santa start his prep to take off in 27 minutes.
Oh, that means Rudolph is charging up.
Uh-huh.
Don't shoot at the red lights.
That's right. That is right.
There's that show. Yeah.
It's
Red
usually
One.
around this time I send NORAD Santa Tracker at NORAD Santa on X a note saying, will Santa be reporting in on any aliens or UFOs that are flying by? And I usually get a response annually to that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorites. I would also like to remind everybody that December 26th is Boxing Day, also known as the day the craft of unknown origin appeared at Rendlesham Forest in 1980. So if you happen to see Jim Pennison or John Burroughs or Halt online, wish them a happy Boxing Day and thank them for coming forward with their story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
it's the best gift of the year.
Totally the best gift of the year.
Rendlesham Forest, the gift that keeps giving.
To all of my listeners, I want to say a big thank you and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. I will be back on Thursday the 26th. Rob has some shows in the can ready for you guys to be here to watch. And Robbie, thank you for doing that. And you know what? As we wrap up the year here, a big heartfelt thank you to all of our guests, all of our friends of this show, including those who don't come on the air but are very chatty behind the scenes with helping us bring proper information. I look forward to growing in 2025. I need your help to do that as well, and I couldn't think of a better audience to help us keep getting bigger and better each and every year. So thank you for your love throughout 2025 or 2024. We'll see you on the other side of Christmas. Josh Rutledge, thank you for being an awesome friend to SOR and coming on every time we could use you.
Yep.
And really appreciate that. Nicole Sakach, I don't give a care what anybody says. I think you are one of the most elite ufologists in this field. And you are brilliant. And thank you for being one of my best friends. I appreciate you.
Aw, thank you, Dave. Happy New Year and happy holidays, everybody.
Absolutely. So let us say goodnight to all of you. And we will chat with you very, very soon. Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas to you all.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.